How's it going, y'all? Devin here from Tactical Cowboy. So as many of y'all have seen online that I have done a ton of podcasts recently. Iron Sights, Black Rifle, Prepared Mindset, all that good stuff. And we figured I want to do my own because it's super fun. I love chatting with people and getting really deep into topics. Yeah. So here we have Tommy Lee. Many of y'all know him from our courses and our online content. He's done a bunch of training classes with us. And recently we brought him onto our mentorship team because he's so squared away.
Thanks, man.
Appreciate it. So Tommy, introduce yourself to everybody and let's get after it.
Yeah, my name is Tommy Lee. I'm here for the diversity quota. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just here to do this podcast, man. It seemed like an interesting format. Yeah, I've been training with Devin for a number of years now. I've done a lot of competition shooting, and prior to that, I did a lot of competitive MMA fights, grappling tournaments, wrestling, Muay Thai overseas, that kind of thing. And that's what we've been doing, just helping grow this business for Tactical Cowboy.
Nice. Yeah, I can't wait to get into the Muay Thai stuff overseas.
Oh.
You actually went to Thailand, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I've had some buddies that have done that, and they had a really cool experience with it.
Yeah, it's an awesome time. Those guys over there are some of the kindest people I've ever met, but complete savages, man. They're just excellent. They've been fighting since they've been able to walk, like 3 or 4 years old. Damn. These guys, since kids. It's incredible.
Nice.
Yeah.
Awesome. So let's get started. So I want to start with all the way to your background. We've done a ton of driving, going to the range, doing classes and everything, getting to know each other, but never really found out about your childhood yet.
Okay.
So where did you grow up?
I grew up in Kansas. It's Garden City, Kansas.
Really?
Yeah, so really small cow town, farm town pretty much. If you ever hear people say, get the F out of Dodge, Dodge City was like 40 minutes away. And they were our high school rivals. We played them in football and basketball. That's how far out I was. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. So you grew up mother and father.
Yeah.
And all that stuff. And then your parents weren't originally from the United States, correct?
No, they're war refugees from Vietnam. Yeah. Damn. You know, growing up, we don't really know what that meant. Like as kids, we're like, oh yeah, they're from Vietnam, some other country we don't really know, kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Of course, I spoke the language because my mother forced us to learn to read and write the language, but we didn't understand what war was, why they had to drop everything and come here. But yeah, my parents went here. I think my mom was 16 when she left her home to like a completely different land and a language she didn't know.
Really?
Yeah.
So do you know like the details of when she left and how that kind of went down?
Yeah.
So how did that work?
It's interesting because she didn't tell us much about it growing up. She'll tell us like, oh yeah, we escaped communism to come here for you guys to have all these nice things. You know, that's the guilt trip that our mom gave us growing up to do better. But we didn't understand what that meant. But as I got older, she gave me little tidbits of what happened. But my grandfather, her father, was working with U.S. forces to try to repel the communist forces in the north. So we're like Southern Vietnamese. Generally, the people there just wanted to be free and they just wanted to own their own business, live their own lives and not have any issues kind of thing. But over the years, there was like a revolution is what they called it over there, the communist revolution, where it's like they were tired of other countries coming in, taking their resources, colonizing and everything. It's like we have to rise up and communism was the way to do it. So in the years to come, they started doing kind of what we see here in America, is just taking away their freedom of speech, not being able to speak out against that kind of regime. Of course, no weapons, and then also like interfering with their business and daily life as well. They also mandated if you turned 16 as a male, you were required to fight in the Viet Cong army, the communist army. And so my dad told me a lot about that as well. So knowing that my grandfather was cooperating with U.S. forces just to keep those armies out of our lands, one night he was just murdered by a communist army. Yeah.
What?
He was shot in his sleep. Cow. Yeah. And so pretty much the next...
At his home?
Yeah, in his home. They just came in, like busted in and just shot him right there.
Damn.
And she told me the next day, like they knew that since my grandfather died, they were going to come for the rest of the males in the family and of course the women. Mm-hmm. So my mother and her brothers had to pack up everything that they could carry to leave the only home that they have ever known because they knew that they were coming the next day.
Mm-hmm. Damn, that's insane.
Yeah.
We're starting this off strong.
Yeah, sorry guys. You asked.
No, I love it. I love it. That's so cool. Well, now, you see what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So how did they get over here?
On a boat, just like everybody else, because our family was a family of fishermen. They lived on the coast. They raise shrimp and fish and stuff in little farms and stuff like that, and that's how they made their money. But eventually, you know, the stuff that they had to produce and the fish that they caught, they had to sell it off to the army or whatever. They couldn't make full profits of that kind of thing. And so what they did was that they kind of hoarded money for gas and oil, pretty much, to get that ship and sail to another place where they didn't have any issues. Hong Kong was probably the place where most ships went, and I think that's where my mom and dad both went. And so what they did was that they packed 100, sometimes 200 people on like a fishing boat, and they would like hoard all the money to get as much fuel as possible to get over there. Sometimes they would be in the water for months just because they weren't able to dock and things like that. There were people dying, getting sick, or like running out of water. And people would be drinking, she told me that they would be drinking seawater and getting dehydrated or trying to make food out of that water, and it was just not good. It was like trying to make rice and boiling salt water to try to stay hydrated. It was a rough time.
What's interesting is nobody really talks about this these days.
Yeah.
I found that pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Well, we're probably not going to make money on this video anyway, so we might as well just start getting after it. I wonder if it has to do with, you know, the political background of it, with communism and that kind of thing.
Oh, yeah.
Because everybody talks about, it sounds like a similar situation to, you know, like the slave trade and all that.
Oh,
absolutely. You learned about in school. But I never heard this about the Vietnamese in school at all.
Yeah, I've realized that too. It's a very unique perspective. Okay, so what I've seen out of the American perspective of the Vietnam War is that it's some kind of war that we lost, we as Americans, right? And I even speak to Vietnam vets. They have their hat on that says like U.S. Army Vietnam vet, and they're kind of like ashamed of it for some reason. They're like, there's a perception like we shouldn't have been there kind of thing. But I talk to them, and he's like, I'm first generation Vietnamese, man. Like, without you guys being there and giving my parents enough time to get out of there, I wouldn't be here today. There's a lot of families and people that you guys fought and gave us enough time to get out of there, as little as it was, you know, and they think it's this war that we lost, but I'm like eternally grateful for that. And some guy, I told that to some guy at the range. He was one of the ROs out of Hobble Creek, and he cried a little bit because he's never heard that before, you know. Usually people in the military, if they did well, they're proud of their service, you know, and this one he didn't really talk about too much, and he's never received a perspective from somebody like me like that before.
Dang, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And I am super pumped that you said that. This would be a really cool perspective to get out there.
Yeah.
I've never heard that. That's amazing. So then how did your father get over here?
Same thing, yeah. So since he was a male, he was actually 16, which is the weeks to come, they would go into all the houses in the morning and take all the males to get them, put a rifle in their hand and get them into the army to go kill their own countrymen or to kill the U.S. forces. He didn't want any part of that. So at night, during the day, he would still be at home and doing whatever when he goes to work, but at night he wouldn't sleep at home just because every single morning he would knock on the door and take all the males out. So he would sleep like down the block at his buddy's house in a hammock. And the weeks to come, they were coming every single day, and he was just dodging them every single time. And in the middle of the night one time, he heard his neighbor just like talking. It's like, they're coming tomorrow. They're going to take all of our stuff. They're going to take all the males. There's going to be a big war coming, and we have to do something. And so all the villagers got together and just like banded together, got all the gas money that they could get to leave on this fishing boat that his neighbor's dad had. And so he walked in there and he's like, yo, I have to get on this as well. There's no way that I'm leaving to go fight this war that I don't believe in. And so that's how he got out. He took a boat. It was like 2 or 3 weeks of sailing to Hong Kong. And in Hong Kong, he lived there for a few months, doing odd jobs, washing dishes, working in restaurants, anything he could to make a living. And then he had a choice of either going to, I think, Denmark or to the United States. And he was like 50-50. He had no idea what any of this was, actually, at the time. You know, they didn't have internet or anything like that. So he's just like, yeah, let's go to the United States. And that's the choice he made.
Good choice.
Yeah.
U.S. is way better than Denmark.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Dang, that's crazy. So, raised with your parents in Kansas, and they had a really crazy and cool story.
Yeah.
It's really cool to hear kind of an American success story out of them.
Yeah, people don't see that, you know.
How did they choose Kansas?
Kansas is all farmland. It's flat. It's just completely just open area, but they needed a lot of migrant workers to run all that farmland, right? The families themselves own the farms and the ranches and things, but they always needed people to help, you know. And so my mom moved there, and there's a lot of like Hispanic, especially Mexican population there doing work, but then also a lot of surprisingly Vietnamese people that were there too. There was also some Catholic and Buddhist temples that sponsored people that were refugees at the time. And I think that's how my mom and my dad got there.
Oh, so are they Catholic then?
My dad's Catholic, my mom's Buddhist. You know,
Oh.
now it doesn't really even matter. But
Yeah. So they did get correlated with those churches, and
Pretty
that's how
much.
they got into the community. Damn, that's wild. Awesome. So when you were growing up, how was that? Were you like involved in sports? Because you got into MMA and competitive shooting later on.
Yeah.
Were you like a sports kid or kind of a? I'm thinking because you're Asian, you're really good at math, right?
Yeah. Now, unfortunately, I wish that was the case. That was rough for me. But I grew up just like any other American kid, really. Of course, I had to explain to people, like, what kind of Asian are you? Are you Chinese or Japanese? I was like, my mom told me I'm Vietnamese, and I think I'm Vietnamese kind of thing,
Okay, yeah.
But I grew up just like with the rest of like my friends down the street. They're mostly white or Mexican kids. And we played football, we played basketball, we rode bikes everywhere, hockey in the street, blew up stuff with fireworks, just like any regular kid,
Nice.
But I didn't understand like really the depth of like my heritage and my history. My mom only gave us little tidbits of it growing up. She didn't want to make us feel like we were different than anybody else.
Exactly. I was going to say that. It's almost like she wanted to make sure you actually not conform, but I guess that could be the right word, to American society instead of holding on. Not that you should have let go of the Vietnamese heritage, but she wanted you to just live and not focus so much on that.
No, I totally agree with that. She wanted us to assimilate because this is our new home, right? This is her new home. She had to learn English. She had to learn about our societal norms. She had to raise kids that were, smart and strong enough to live in this new society because this is our home now. We have to fit in kind of thing.
That's awesome. So were you in any organized sports in high school?
Yeah, I did. In high school, I did track and field and basketball. I also played a little bit of football growing up.
Nice. I wish I did track and field in high school.
Yeah.
I'm going to make sure my kids are doing track and field for sure.
Man,
because there's nothing more representation of your physical ability and stuff like that. Like a pure sprint or run or shot put, whatever.
Yeah, there's no like games or rules involved. It's just pure performance, and it's only you. You're not relying on anybody. And it's a very simplified format, and it's just like the peak of your performance and what you can do.
So no wrestling, huh?
Oh, I did some wrestling too, yeah.
Okay, I figured you would with the fighting.
So it's like, most kids in the Midwest, during the spring they play basketball, during the fall they do football, and then later they do wrestling kind of thing. And so I cycled throughout all of it. There was always a sport for us to play.
Nice.
Kind of thing.
So grew up in Kansas, then, graduated high school and all that.
Yeah.
So then did you go to college?
Yeah, I went to college at the University of Kansas. KU.
Oh, nice.
KU, which is in Lawrence, Kansas, and it was probably like 40 minutes away from Kansas City.
Didn't you say you did some partying at University of Colorado?
Yeah,
that's my area.
Yeah, that's what they did during spring break and during like winter break and stuff, because there's not really a lot in the Midwest, but right down I-70 is just Denver, and that's where we went to go skiing. Went to Breckenridge, Keystone, Denver, that kind of thing. Yeah, it was a good time.
That's awesome. So then what did you major in college?
Man. So like Asian parents, of course, they just want you to do something practical, right? You're either a doctor, engineer, or lawyer or something like that.
Pretty good idea.
Yeah, pretty good idea. But I went into business, finance, and accounting.
Okay,
so I went to business school at KU.
What was that like?
It was awesome, man. I felt like it was the most practical thing I wanted to do and gave me enough flexibility to change directions if I want to run my own business, work for an accounting firm, work for pretty much anything just to know how business works.
Yeah, and Tommy's been a good source for when I'm starting up my own businesses and all that, always bouncing ideas off you, and you always have good advice.
Oh, totally, yeah.
Did they call it finance when you were in?
Yeah, they did. It was weird.
Yeah,
I noticed that too. What is that
I
about?
had a bunch of friends in college, and then they were in business school, or it's business school is the overarching one, right?
Yep.
And there's all the ones up below it. And finance. I thought that was funny.
Yeah, it sounded interesting, but I just always.
If you don't say finance, you probably don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Awesome. So you graduated college, and then did you start? We'll get into this, but did you get into your own business right away, or
nah?
What did you do?
I wanted to get some experience, So I worked for like a big accounting firm in Kansas City for a number of years.
Which one is that?
KPMG.
Yeah, I've heard of them.
Yeah. It's one of the big five at the time. Now it's like I guess it's only big three because a lot of them merged. But I think I was pretty good at it because I was good at understanding the policies and rules about things. But then it was just like it drained everything out of me mentally, man.
Yes, I've got one of my really good buddies from college, Kevin Boudreau. He's involved in that stuff. And, I hope his boss doesn't see this. Whatever. He says the same thing where he likes it and he makes, a good living and all that kind of stuff. But at the same time, it is very draining because they're long days, right? Especially during the tax season.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And it was repetitive kind of thing. And I was good at my job, but I didn't feel like you understand, Devin, like you have, as men, like we like to have something that we do to make us feel productive, but then we also like to create, like do something for us, you know, and then spend time something that fulfills us mentally and physically stressful too. There's something about physical stress that was missing.
Oh yeah, that is the other thing he said. He's getting back into physical fitness and everything now.
Yeah.
But I was friends with him in college, so we were both, he was my vice president for our weightlifting club.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so he was really into it. We'd go compete, all these things. And when he got into the workplace, that started taking a back seat because, like you said, you're sitting all day or whatever at the office all day.
Yeah.
And then long days. So then fitness took a back seat for him, and he didn't like that either.
Oh.
But he's getting back into it.
Good. Man, I feel that so much. I didn't even realize it as it was coming, though. Because months, as you were doing that, just as a repetitive nature part of the job, you don't realize why you're so anxious or why you're so stressed.
Huh.
Or why you're just like in traffic and somebody cuts you off and you're just like on edge all of a sudden. Before you're just like, who cares, kind of thing. Mm-hmm. It's because you don't have an outlet for that energy and anything triggers you, And
he said he drinks a lot of caffeine.
Oh yeah, that too.
So I've heard that from everybody involved in that. Lack of physical exercise hurts them, and then over consumption of caffeine.
Yeah.
Because they're trying to stay alert, sitting there in a very non-stimulating environment, I guess you could say.
Yeah, you have to do anything you can to stay focused on something so mundane.
Damn.
And that amount of caffeine messes with your sleep.
And your sleep gets messed up, your hormones get messed up. Mm-hmm. Yeah, dudes getting ED left and right. Mm-hmm. Awesome. So you did that and you were working. And then you got tired of it, so now I'm feeling like it's leading into your professional life now.
Yeah. So I decided to leave Kansas when all of my friends from college started moving away, getting families, getting jobs everywhere else as well. And the only other place that had roots was in Utah because the second, me and my brother went to college, my parents got kind of empty nest syndrome in Garden City, Kansas. So they wanted to move near family. And luckily, a lot of her brothers that also came from Vietnam went to Utah as well.
Oh, interesting.
And so, I have all my uncles, aunts, cousins, and everything here. They live in Taylorsville, Murray, West Valley area.
Dang, I didn't know your whole family was here.
Yeah, a lot of them are. Yeah, surprisingly. There's a big Vietnamese population up near Salt Lake. Huh. That's where they moved. And so I was like, I want to go here. And I did some research, and the Salt Lake area was booming for tech at the time. And business was good. There's less business regulations and tax issues. It was a good, well-maintained state. Tax rates were low. I was like,
is it still like that in comparison, or has it gone up since when you came here?
Of course it goes up a little bit, but I love the infrastructure. Every time that I went home and visited my mom in college, I was like, man, this is a beautiful place,
Yeah.
And so I was like, I'll just move here. I don't know what I'm doing yet, but I'll figure it out.
Okay. Did you move to Springville?
I moved to Taylorsville.
Okay, gotcha. Mm-hmm. So how'd you get involved in this business now?
This business now, well, first I started a software development company with some buddies that I knew. It was Jesse, Steve, and Chad. And we were just building apps for people, building websites, doing marketing, e-com stuff for a number of years. And running your own business, you learn a lot, man. It's also
for sure
very stressful and time consuming because you don't get paid until you actually have money.
Exactly. Until you execute the job.
Yeah, but then you pay everybody else before you pay yourself.
That's true.
It also wasn't as scalable was the main thing. If I wanted to make twice as much money, I'd have to put in twice as many hours, but then get an office that's twice as big and hire twice as big of a staff.
Yeah.
It scaled laterally, but it wasn't very scalable vertically.
Oh, interesting.
Kind of thing. But then going to a lot of business conventions, tech summits, and that kind of thing, I've rubbed shoulders with a lot of people, met a lot of people, and then I met some of the CEOs and people running the company that I know today. So I started working there, and I moved up in the company really quick, and I've been there for probably 6 or 7 years now.
Nice. So what is, I don't know if you want to or you can, you don't have to name the title of the company,
sure.
But what's your role again?
Yeah, I'm a product director of product.
Okay.
So what I do is I run 2 software engineering teams, fairly big ones, and an entire product team. The engineering teams are the coders and developers. The product teams create the specifications for the technology that we need for users. Our users, we built like a pipeline to do digital marketing and SEO. There's content writers, there's web developers, there's people who do strategy and keyword research and reporting. Then we have customer service teams, so they just log into a portal, hit a button, and a customer pops up, and they just do their work kind of thing.
Yeah, I was saying about how I refer to you for a lot of questions about business. I remember, getting the website started up and trying to make sure we're getting good leads on the internet. I wasn't getting any, and then I kind of inquired with you about SEO and how it works.
Yeah.
And then you clearly helped me understand it, and then I was able to apply it just from some simple research.
Yeah.
And it really, really made a difference.
That's good.
So now we get tons of leads just from the internet, just from optimizing the SEO on our web pages.
Yeah.
And if I wouldn't talk to you, I wouldn't have known how that worked at all.
Wow. That's good to know, man. It's surprising how many, that's how it usually is. Small businesses, they're experts in their own field, in their industry.
Mm-hmm.
There's small mom and pop shops that just run their restaurant or their small business, but they won't know anything about digital marketing. It's not until like the younger generation and they understand how the internet works and they know how to do SEO and tagging their content properly.
Exactly. And it made a huge difference because now we're getting leads all the time.
Yeah, you don't have any problems filling up classes, bro. That's for sure. So I'm always asking you, like, what are we going to do with all these other people? And all of your classes are booked. And then what?
Yeah, that's true. Quality for quantity, though.
Sure. At some point, you're going to have to expand, hire more people, or clone yourself or something.
Well, that's what we're doing, working on Braden.
Yeah.
Make him like a little clone.
For sure. Yeah.
Awesome. So that's what you're doing now. And then when did you get into, you said you got into the MMA. When did you get into that?
Oh, well, I've always been competing in contact sports. Even in college, I did like kickboxing and taekwondo and that kind of thing just because I was testing things. I had an affinity for like striking sports, stand-up sports, kicking and punching and that kind of thing. But then like when I moved here, like I've always been interested in mixed martial arts, which includes grappling, submission wrestling, everything, And I knew that my weak area was actually submission grappling, and I started looking for MMA gyms, that kind of thing. And so I grew up watching this guy named Jeremy Horn growing up in the UFC. He's actually one of the pioneers. Like he was in one of the first UFCs. Dude's had over like 250 fights, something ridiculous. The majority of his fights aren't even recorded or anything like that. Because at the time, the sport didn't exist, but that's what it was. It was just fighting is what they called it.
That's cool.
And then he got big, and UFC got big, and he fought in Pride, and Pride was like a big organization in Japan.
Yeah, I've seen that before.
Yeah, and he's fought in some of the, like Chuck Liddell, Anderson Silva, like he's fought in some of the greatest names in mixed martial arts. And he has an affinity for grappling and jiu-jitsu. Mm-hmm. And so I was like in Salt Lake, and I was like, let me look up some good MMA gyms with good grappling and jiu-jitsu, and Jeremy's name popped up, and I was like, I'll show up to one of the classes. And I thought, just like a lot of gyms, is that they have a name that's recognizable, right? Some big name gym, and then you show up, and there's usually their instructors and black belts teaching the classes. And I was there on the mats the first day, and then Jeremy comes in with his gym shorts, plops down, and he's like, okay, today we're learning rear naked chokes. And I'm just like, holy shit.
That's awesome.
There's Jeremy Horn. It's like I've been watching him on TV since I was a kid,
Yeah.
And so I started taking a lot of his classes, just showing up as much as I can. I was addicted to it, man. Once you get to a point where you're good enough to understand how good everybody else is, it takes just a little bit of that experience for you to understand how far behind you are. And at that point, I was like, these guys are incredible. They're artists and masters at some of the stuff that they do, and I'm like so far behind, but then I have so much to learn.
Oh yeah.
At that point, I was addicted, man. It was a good time.
So when did you go to Thailand then?
During my fights, actually. I went there for 2 of my fight camps.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but I trained at Jeremy's for probably 3 years, maybe 4 years before I even took a fight. And Jeremy, of course, was always pushing me to take a fight. He's like, Tommy, you're good enough, go take a fight. I'm like, no way. There's no way I'm good enough. You're just trying to feed me to the lions. Are you crazy? But he's always like, you can take a fight. And I just didn't understand. The perception of how far I needed to go and how good he thought I was completely different. I didn't realize until like my first fight that I'd been training with a bunch of professional fighters for years.
Yeah, can you tell us about that first fight and how you came to that realization?
Yeah, man. The first fight, I trained for probably 6 months, cutting weight. My diet was perfect, on par. I got my sleep in. I did recovery. I did strength and conditioning, everything.
Nice.
I did everything that all the pro fighters in our gym were doing. We had 2 guys in the UFC at the time. It was like DeMarcus Johnson and Sean O'Connell. Big dudes. I was sparring with those guys too and losing brain cells, you know. And some of the best grapplers that I've seen, I've been rolling with as well, you know. And I compared myself to them.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how far am I to them, you know? And I'm still having a way to go, and I didn't think I was that good. But then when my first fight came around, you know, I was on weight, made weight perfect. Weight cut, perfect. Everything like that. But it was like a mental game for me. You know, it wasn't as physical because when the fight was over, I was like, that was it, you know? Mm-hmm. All of my sparring sessions were way harder than the fight. It's nuts. And I guess that's how it should be. Your training should be easier than the fight is.
Oh, for sure. You said you knocked him out in 45 seconds, right?
Yeah, something like that.
That's badass.
Yeah. The biggest struggle for me, I think I've told you this before, was like being okay with like hurting people as a thing. Mm-hmm. You know, like... of course, in MMA marketing and UFC, you like to see that badass, and it's like, oh, I'm gonna mess this guy up. He doesn't know what's coming. I couldn't do that. Even during media days or interviewing me, I was like, oh, I'm just gonna go out there and try my best.
Nice.
Guy. And even when they're doing like photos and you square off with the guy, it was just all weird for me, you know.
That's funny. Well, it's kind of similar to that visualization training we did this weekend.
Oh yeah.
Where, you know, coming to terms with being in that actual situation, and these people are just visualizing it. You're actually, you know, hitting somebody. Yeah. But still, it's something interesting to come to terms with.
Absolutely, yeah. So I'm standing across the ring, crowd's cheering, lights are super bright, the ref is like counting us down, and in my mind, I'm like, how am I going to be okay going full bore on this guy, right? Yeah. Because in training, even in sparring, like we never really go like full blast.
Exactly, because you don't want to hurt each other.
Yeah, exactly. We're like going and they're my bros, they're like my teammates too. And so if I tag him really hard once, you know, and I see his head rock back, I give him a few seconds to recover. And they do the same for me. Like I get wrecked, and it's like a give and take. That's what sparring is. Mm-hmm. But here, it's like, no, you go until the ref pulls you off the fighter. And I was like, in my head, I was like, I have to be okay with this. You know?
Man, that's wild. Yeah. That's awesome.
So the round starts, you know, and just like any new fighter, right? I'm just completely tense. You know, I'm not loose and calm at all. I'm just like this, like really being aggressive, intensely focused on what he's doing, and I'm just slipping punches, and I'm waiting for him to throw something hard, and he hasn't, you know. I feel like he's just feeling me out. A lot of fighters do that, in boxing especially. They'll just let you have like 30%, you know, and then 100% when you're not looking. So I'm just like waiting for him. I'm like, what the heck is going on? Like I've been getting beat up for the past 6 months. I'm like, when is it going to come? And so like an opening came, and I just rocked him once. And it was the hardest punch I've ever thrown.
And was that the only punch?
No, I had like 2 or 3 or 4 after that.
Damn.
The first one was interesting because I've never really thrown with like really small gloves as hard as I could. It was an overhand right because he was dropping his hand. But it cracked him on the top of the skull, which is one of the hardest places to hit somebody.
Oh, yeah.
The crowd was like, ooh, because it sounded like a baseball bat. And then he just like shook it off and walked forward. And I was like, what is going on?
You're like, oh, shit.
So from that day on, I learned to actually hit him in the soft spots, you know, soft cartilage, that kind of thing, body shots. This is where you want to hit here, not up here.
Well, you probably weren't even trying to be that precise because you couldn't even focus like on that kind of level.
Oh, yeah. It's the same thing. Schoolyard fights, you're all tense. You have the adrenaline dump. You're super tense, and you just throw a hard punch. Yeah. And I found out that I needed to be precise, and so I started slipping. And then I countered one right down the center, and I saw him stumble back. I had to keep going until the ref called the fight, and so I threw a left hook. And Jeremy told me that I picked him off up the ground with the left hook, so his legs came off the ground a little bit, and then
nice.
And then he didn't get.
Is there a video of this?
Yeah, I can show you a little bit later.
We're gonna have to watch that
really
later.
Interesting. Yeah.
Damn, that's awesome. So, you did your awesome fighting career. How many fights did you do?
Oh man, probably like 4 or 5 MMA fights and like a few Muay Thai fights as well, and a bunch of grappling tournaments. Yeah.
What would you say is the best? MMA, Muay Thai, or grappling?
Mixed martial arts is the best.
Makes sense, right?
Yeah, it's just fighting. It's all it is.
Best of both worlds. Mm-hmm. Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
So then you did that, and then it was came along, right?
Yeah.
So then the gym wasn't able to operate to the same capacity, so you guys started shooting.
Yeah, it wasn't that Jeremy shut down the gym because he was afraid of or anything. He was just like doing it to be safe because nobody knew what it was at the time. And then he also didn't want to expose his students to things that could be bad or anything like that. And so it wasn't enough gym time. And all of the kind of competitions, grappling tournaments and fights at the time shut down for like 2 years. There wasn't a fight in Utah for a really long time. And so I was already shooting on the weekends, going to matches with Jeremy already. And so it just ramped up. And he's like, let's just go shooting every weekend. I'm like,
nice.
Awesome.
So what got you into shooting in the first place?
Oh, yeah. Like in Kansas, like that's just.
In Kansas?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're just like country boys. And one of the things you do is just go shooting. You know? But then we're just shooting like.
What were you shooting back then? Like shotguns and
shotguns, 22s, clays, you know, like little clay thrower thing.
Yeah.
Shooting those kinds of things. I don't think I had an AR or anything like that. But I knew like good rifle technique and good pistol technique. We never drew or anything like that.
Yeah.
But that was the type of stuff that I was exposed to, and it was just for fun.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think never once we even considered like using it in self-defense at the time.
Yeah.
Growing up in the 90s and early 2000s was just like, I don't think that ever happened in Kansas.
Yeah, right. That's true. Growing up in Illinois, I would have thought the same exact thing.
Yeah, really? Even in Illinois?
Oh, yeah. Well, small town Illinois, not Chicago.
Not Chicago,
right?
yeah, gotcha.
Yeah, I'm sure in Chicago would have had a different perspective.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
So how did you get into... So did you get into competitive shooting before that time frame, the COVID time?
Yeah, I think I did a few matches with Jeremy just because.
So he got you into it.
Yeah, just like anything. He's an interesting character, man. Like he's one of those guys that just takes one skill and just hones it to perfection, and he does it. Just puts in as many reps as possible. That's how he approached fighting. That's how he approached shooting. That guy like shoots the same gun he carries in competition.
Oh, I love that.
Concealed. Everybody's running race holsters and belts. And he's just here doing everything concealed. Reloads, everything.
Yeah. I remember at the course we had him at, we were trying to induce stress on you guys, and he did the humbler. If anybody watching knows the humbler drill, a pistol drill, really, really tough drill on that big target with numbers and little red X. And I'm pretty sure it's out of 700 points, I think I remember, and I think he had like 670 or something just ridiculous.
Yeah, he demolished it.
And this wasn't just the humbler, it was the humbler, but like a 7,500 meter sprint before every shooting iteration.
Yep.
And he crushed it.
Yep.
And how old is he?
He's getting probably 48 right now.
Yeah, so he was like towards the back of the pack coming in on the run, but his shooting was on point.
Yeah, he does this. The thing is, like, he approaches the same way he does fighting. He considers him a lifelong student in mixed martial arts. Even though he's the pioneer of this thinking sport, he'll learn from anyone, anywhere, if you have something to teach him that he's never heard before.
Damn.
Same thing with shooting, man. Like, if he's not shooting a match or practicing on the weekends, he's flying out to other states to learn from some of the masters.
Nice.
That's what he does.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Hopefully we can all be more like that.
Yeah.
All right. So, I mean, that's probably a pretty good, well-rounded talk about your background.
Yeah.
So what are you doing now?
Now I'm just working at the tech company where I'm at. On the weekends, of course, we're shooting like every single week. You know?
And during the week.
And during the week, probably multiple times. There's a week where we shot every single stinking day. You know?
Yeah, Tommy just helped us out at our concealed carbine course at the EDC Expo last weekend. And that was technically like kind of your first being an official mentor. Like we did that Freedom Front event and you helped out with that.
Oh, yeah.
But that was kind of the first time we had you in front of our group talking about, use a barrier like this, shooting stance, pulling a rifle out of the bag. And I thought you did really, really well.
Oh, thanks, man.
Yeah, were you nervous at all?
I wasn't nervous. It's just like in the back of my mind, sometimes I think I'm unqualified, even to teach people fighting, right? I need to get more fights, more rounds. I need to be training every stinking day to even be somewhat of an expert on the subject.
Yes.
Right? Even though I've shot a ton and everything like that, I felt like I needed a lot more work, and that was the only thing in the back of my mind.
It's always in the back of my mind too, and I think it should be in the back of everybody's mind.
Yeah.
We were talking about this earlier about how could you claim, I'm the SME on this subject? Of course, experience matters, right? But we want to be somebody as us teaching pistol, rifle, marksmanship, tactics, all this crazy stuff. Yeah. Guys that are actually out doing it on a consistent basis, not just going off of, hey, here's what I learned in the Army back in 2011.
Yeah.
So that's 12 years ago. So things are changing.
Yeah.
And if we're not adapting, I would consider us not the subject matter expert, right?
Right. Yeah.
I think it's also healthy to keep, imposter syndrome. Everybody's heard of that term.
Yeah.
Right? You've heard of that?
Yeah.
That's kind of what you're talking about.
Yeah.
It's, of course, you don't want to always be thinking imposter syndrome, I have it.
Yep.
But I think it's important to have an element of that in your mind so you're always pushing yourself to stay up to date and stay on the cutting edge.
I totally agree with that, man. one of the trainings he took us to, one of the private ones, it was like a Green Beret, 2 Army Rangers, a bunch of dudes from the Army and the Marines, and it was just me. Like, I was like, what the hell am I doing?
You mean the Freedom Front?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we had a solid team there. And we had you, Ryan, Chris, and I think that was our guys that were civilians, right?
Yeah.
But you guys perform extremely well.
Yeah.
And it's really, really cool to see when we've got guys from military backgrounds and stuff. Like sometimes we do our classes, and for instance, we had that static and mobile carbine mechanics, and everybody performed really well, but one of the law enforcement officers that took it, we grade every single class, and no offense to him or anything, but he came in at the bottom of the class.
Wow.
Yeah, and he still passed and everything, just like everybody else. That was actually one of the only classes we've had recently where every single person met that 80% standard, so that was pretty cool.
Solid.
But it was really cool to see a bunch of shooters, mix of law enforcement, military, veterans, and civilians. And yeah, some of the professionals are getting beat out these days by civilian dudes that are just training all the damn time.
I'm seeing that more and more, man. Like there's some really good squared away law enforcement. I shot with like Sandy PD.
Like one we shot with today.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That guy was solid too.
We just shot with one of our buddies, Josh.
Yeah.
He's with Utah County. And we went to his range and did about 2 hours of pistol this morning.
Yeah.
Bunch of different stuff on paper, then some challenges on steel.
Yeah.
And he's getting really good.
From where he came from, man, his groups were tight.
Yeah. What I like about Josh is, so this had to be a year and a half ago, he signed up for a private class with me.
Yep.
This was maybe 2 years ago. This is when we were kind of first starting out. And he really hadn't shot before at all. But he's like, I just got this Glock 19 because I want to get ready for the police academy.
Yeah.
So we're like, sweet, let's get you trained up. And we took him through the pistol standard and all that stuff. And he struggled, obviously, in his first day. But, you know, grip, trigger, everything, he was really attentive and he really paid attention to what I was telling him. And then I could see he had a ton of potential, right?
Yeah.
So then he started coming to other trainings, coming to other classes. We kind of brought him onto the team. And now I consider him like a little brother, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
But he just went to some qualifications that he went to. I don't know how much we can talk about it. But he absolutely crushed it.
Yeah.
From what he told me, he could be lying, I guess. I don't think he is, though. But he did a really, really good job. They were extremely impressed. And apparently they were asking, where'd you learn all this stuff? And literally, almost all we do is the fundamentals.
Yep.
Over and over and over again. The TCTS pistol standard, the roundup, and then we'll just toss some other drills in there. But just those 2 drills clearly have prepared him to crush his qualifications and real life stuff. And he's only been shooting for like a year and a half.
Only a year and a half.
Well, year and a half, 2 years, however long that private session was kind of his first time shooting that pistol.
Yeah.
And he's just stayed dedicated, and his attention to detail has really shown through.
Yeah. It shows that really repetition matters and the basics matter. Because then you can apply it to whatever scenario they give you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whether you're running, doing target transitions, and your grip, trigger, sights are on target, then your shot's going to be on target.
Exactly.
Just honed it, and he's doing really well, man.
And I've had a couple other people from a couple different departments here in Utah and in Illinois that I've worked with. And they always find what we say really, really refreshing. And they really love the attention to detail.
Yeah.
Where, take it back to that example, the pistol standard, they absolutely eat that up. Because they're like, I love how I have to sit here and get 30 rounds downrange over 17 different draws and keep them in that tight of a group. And it's really not that tight of a group, right?
Right.
Circle's about as big as the top of this coffee mug, and it's from 3 yards away, but it's about that consistency.
Yeah.
They find that really refreshing because apparently, even in the military, I don't remember ever having to, with a pistol, do grouping like that over and over and over again.
Yeah. Or you're just looking for something like here-ish?
Oh, I mean, obviously in regiment, our standards got pretty high. A lot of rifle stuff, though, you know?
Right.
I don't remember the exact qualification for pistol, but I know if I did the pistol standard back then, I would not have passed.
Yeah.
Especially if I was trying to go for those advanced times or something. I think back then they really prioritized you had a strong grasp of the fundamentals and you would not fail presenting the pistol and shooting the target.
Yeah.
Like they weren't, too concerned about what's your split times or this or that, but they wanted to make sure, because we got a whole group we're trying to train, right?
Yeah.
They want to make sure you wouldn't screw up the draw and get yourself killed.
Right? That makes
Which
sense.
there's an important element to that, and I think I owe a lot of my base of fundamentals from the military, obviously, because I never shot before I went in. Never shot a gun before I went in.
Whoa.
Yeah, which is pretty interesting. But they take people, and that's where like the slow, smooth, fast comes from. Where they're like, all right, we've got you. You know, you got basic, and then we had Ranger selection, then we had my time and regiment. And it was this very slow, long progression of the fundamentals. So kind of start you off slow, then get you smooth, and then eventually you get fast.
Yeah.
But yeah, pretty interesting.
That's awesome. That makes sense though, because your pistol isn't really your main; it's your sidearm.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
And I was mostly a machine gunner during my time at the 2nd Battalion.
Yeah.
So then all of my training kind of went into that. And I think that's the disconnect where we see it with the civilians that we work with. We love them, obviously, but it's like that time period of training those fundamentals isn't there. So that's why we have such attention to detail in all of our classes, right?
Yeah.
Because we're trying to provide that for them in an extremely condensed format.
Yeah.
That's why all of our classes are reps.
Yeah.
We talk a little bit, but we start getting repetition in as soon as we can.
Yeah.
And that's one thing I think Josh really benefited from, that attention to detail and all those reps. And I think he's going to take that into Utah County when he's starting to mentor guys coming up, because I'm pretty sure he's going to take that route where he's an instructor. However they do that, he was talking to me about that. So he'll get involved in that. I think he's going to be really good, because that's something I feel like is missing from a lot of programs right now. And I've seen it working at Discount. Yeah, I've seen a lot of it.
Yeah, for sure. He's definitely going to be an instructor. Once they see that he's capable and consistent,
Oh, yeah.
and he's able to teach the concepts that he knows, yeah, he'll definitely be there. I'm glad there's people like him, you know, especially in law enforcement, that's trying to build up a culture of just training, because that's your profession. It's
Exactly.
different from what I'm doing it for. I'm doing it for fun, you know, and I'm doing it to like learn how to defend myself and my family. But that's literally his job, and he's taking it that seriously.
Exactly. Also, what he takes seriously is his fitness.
Oh, yeah.
And that's a huge aspect of it as well. We've all seen Cops, right? In all the episodes of Cops I've watched, I don't really think I've seen him shoot.
Yeah.
I've seen him fucking run.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you can't run 300 meters and then be able to have a right mind and make decisions,
Yeah.
that's probably the wrong answer.
Yep. And then physical contact is weird for some cops that don't actually train jiu-jitsu or striking and stuff like that. So they freak out really easily.
And he's got that full background in wrestling.
Yeah.
He's super cop.
He'll just be like, I'll just wait till he gasses out, you know?
Yeah.
I won't even pull my gun. We're like, we're good.
That's
You know?
something Kevin and I were talking about. I think it was Kevin and I at Discount. We were talking about in reference to like law enforcement shootings.
Mhm.
And it could even be from a civilian or military context, where pulling the trigger on somebody when it wasn't necessary yet. Military, I don't really think they have that much of an issue with it, because, hey, you guys are the only ones there, so
Yeah.
sadly, that's kind of how it goes.
Yeah.
But for the LE guys and the civilians, everything nowadays is on camera. And I think if everybody had more confidence with their firearm, they're going to present it and have to use it at a way later time.
Oh, yeah.
At least that's how I feel from a standpoint, because I feel really confident with my, carry text and carry context. I feel really confident with my carry pistol. So I think something would really have to progress down where there's no doubt that I had to pull it out for me to actually deploy that weapon system.
That makes sense.
Yeah, but if you're not confident with it, I can see you needing to deploy it earlier, and now it's a situation where now it's going to get escalated, and if if I was a police officer, now the perpetrator or the guy breaking the law or however that works they're like, holy cow, and they've been told by the media that this cop's just going to kill me, and you pull out the gun a little too early, now they're going to get escalated and they try to attack you because they're frightened of you, which is it's not exactly justified, right?
Yeah.
Media sways those things. And then they come at you, and now you have no choice but to shellac them, because you should, right?
Right.
You presented your pistol, and now they come to attack you. Obviously, you have the right, if that's your job, to do what you need to do.
That's right, though.
But
it is about confidence, right? And the confidence doesn't come until you get enough training in that you know how your gun functions, how it behaves, how well you shoot, and you've done enough repetitions. So you know in the back of your mind, that is the final solution.
Exactly.
If I pull that gun, this job is over. but I'm going to wait until it's absolutely necessary. So they're confident with everything else. But if I need it, it's a quick draw, and I've done it 1,000 times before.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think we just need more reps for everybody. Everybody, professionals, civilians, all that kind of stuff. We always talk about in our courses, right? Even it's all civilians. A lot of times it could be some vets, could be some LE guys, but we're always like, we go over how to treat your firearm like a professional. For instance, finger off the trigger. The safety on this rifle here only gets switched to fire at this moment right here. As soon as it comes away from a high line, put it back to safe. Always knowing the status of your weapon, meaning press checks, all these kind of things. Yep. We really pound that into people where every single time from here on out, after you take our class, you always press check that pistol or rifle. You always keep it oriented in a safe direction. So then other people around you know you're squared away. And we're advocates for gun rights and all that kind of thing.
Absolutely. You can't have elite marksmanship and performance standards without elite safety standards.
Mm-hmm.
Not just if you do everything well, shoot well, and your safety standards are crap, that doesn't fly.
That's true.
It has to go one-on-one like that.
Damn, so true. Awesome. So let's get into some different topics now.
Yeah.
So we hit the range today. Awesome 2-hour session. What we're going to do with this Tactical Cowboy podcast is we're going to couple our conversation with an activity, being fitness or marksmanship. Or maybe we could do something else, but they're most likely going to run along those lines. And that's because of my recent podcast with Scott from Iron Sights. It was really, really cool to have, Blake's there getting some cool video. And I actually showed him what we're about with our standards and shooting. And then I showed him some fun drills that I got from some cool groups, which we had a video of that. It'll come out soon. But either way, we want to couple the podcast with an activity so then we can talk about that too.
Sweet.
So we did our drill of the month, which we're going to start, which thankfully Blake gave us an idea for it. And I swear, we literally just showed up to the range. We had no idea what the drill of the month was going to be, and we made it up. And this drill of the month was from 25 yards, present the pistol on a beep, beep, draw, 3 rounds regular grip, 3 rounds strong hand, 3 rounds weak hand. And we did 6 rounds of a warm-up because maybe we could show that in the video or something at some point. I went to start it and then I had a magazine issue because I'm running the 10 millimeter and it happens sometimes.
Yeah.
We were going to do it cold, but then we were like, well, we'll do it with the 6-round warm-up because that's what happened.
Yeah.
But what'd you think about that cold start drill?
Man, my cold start was better than the actual run, man. I should have just did it cold, straight cold. But it was good, man. It's I love cold start drills because that tells you how good your base is.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing as fighting. It's what do you default to if you're not warmed up and stuff? How do you react and how good are your basic fundamentals?
That's true. That's true.
Yeah.
That's also why we had 3 rounds strong hand or 3 rounds regular grip, strong hand, weak hand at 25 yards, right? Which is a lot of people, once you put the target at 25 yards, mentally they're scared, I guess you could say, right? So they're like, holy cow, can I actually shoot this far? And I see a lot of anticipation at that range because people are, I don't know what it is. You could be at 15, alphas, and then you back up to 25 and the target's smaller and things start to fall apart. So I remember a year and a half ago, I was training a ton with a buddy on a work detail we were on, and we pretty much did everything pistol from 25 yards.
Dude.
That trip we were on, yeah. And tons of strong and weekend because that was right after I read Pat McNamara's book. I told you about that. Right?
Yeah.
Tactical Applications of Practical Shooting. He talked about in that book, I believe I read the 2nd edition, yeah. He talked about in that book about how he never felt like he got to the next level with his pistol marksmanship and his rifle marksmanship until he mastered his strong and weekend.
Yeah.
So I took that to heart. So we had that combined with shooting at 25 pretty much the whole trip.
Yeah.
And nowadays, I feel extremely confident at that range.
It's helped me a lot too, man. I've never done, especially weekend kind of thing. That trigger control and grip and getting your sight picture there and putting as little input into the gun as possible when you're trying to work the trigger and break the shot. Oh, man, it's been an improvement for me too. I still need a ton of work on it, but I can see why that helps your shooting.
Oh, for sure.
You just hone on that one thing, the trigger pull, man.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And nowadays, with my strong weekend shooting, when I first started, I was gripping it pretty light, but then I want to start shooting faster. So I'm actually gripping the gun pretty damn tight, which is a really good art to try to master, I think, when you're trying to become good with the pistol, is being able to grip the gun tight even with your strong hand, because you're shooting, or your weak hand if you're shooting one-handed, you got to grip the gun tight to some extent, because if this is going to happen in real life, you're not just going to be softly holding the gun and go boom.
That's right. Yeah.
And it's going to recoil. You're going to go pop, 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 pop.
Yep. Interesting balance for me. I grip the gun as hard as I can until it shakes, and then back it off until it doesn't shake, kind of thing. That's
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, damn.
Kind of thing.
That's some Monday Minute material.
Yeah, that's it.
I've never heard that.
I can
That's
whiten
smart.
up with it, but I'm doing one of these, and then I just back it off, and it's calm.
Oh, nice. Yeah, because obviously if you gripped as hard as you could, it would just be shaking. Your reticle is going to be going all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for me, it really helps. If you guys are going to try this stuff at home to get ready for that cold start, it really helped me dry firing. And sometimes I'll actually dry fire gripping at that level, where I'm gripping it and it's like I'm shaking, but then I'm isolating this joint right here and still being real fine on the trigger squeeze.
Yeah, at that point it doesn't matter. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gripping the gun as hard as I can. So then, and I don't do that every dry fire rep. A lot of it's just the regular grip. But then I feel like if I can squeeze this gun as hard as possible, which I might do in real life because adrenaline's hitting me and all that kind of crazy stuff. If I can grip as hard as possible and control that trigger finger, I can do it no matter what.
Absolutely, yeah. When your emotions are tense and you're ready, you're not going to be light-handed with that.
Exactly.
At all, man.
And we saw during the visualization training this weekend, a lot of people didn't even look down their sights, all they did was natural point of aim at the threat, the paper target in front of them, after we put the scenario in their head. And they just sent it. So
can you explain what that is for people who don't know the visualization training? The thing is, the constant kind of feedback I got is that I've never seen this or done this before.
Yeah, so, and you have done it, right?
Yeah.
You did it that one time, Justin took you through it.
Yeah.
So it comes from our buddy Wayne. He spent some really awesome time in some really, really high-level units. And it essentially is, we set you up. If we feel, or if we know you're safe with the pistol, we'll let you do it from the draw. Sometimes we don't, right? Because you're going to be all messed up in the head. But either way, we put you in front of a target. Boom, sweet, there's my target. Sometimes we might have some visual aids where it's actually a target of a person, like the T-Rex Arms ones. This time we didn't do that, which is totally fine. You can do this with a buddy at home. But either way, we set you up in front of a target. You're holstered or at position 2. We had you close your eyes, relax, and then the one that Justin took me, which is really, really effective for men, is, you have that person start thinking about a lady in their life, maybe their wife, daughter, mother, sister, whatever it may be, because as men, we have also a natural instinct to protect women, right? That's a real thing. We want to protect, and then if it's a woman, we probably want to protect her more. And then if it's a woman that means something to us, even more.
Yeah.
So we kind of have them start thinking about this person. I always like to say, think about all the good times that you had with them. And you got to start thinking about that. And your eyes are closed, deep breaths, thinking about these amazing times with this person. And then we start running them through a scenario, which usually has to do with, this person was hurt by a perpetrator, I guess you could say, in some way. I mean, fuck it, let's just get into it. Sometimes we add in, beating, Sexual assault, that's a good word.
Yeah.
Oh, drop my pen. Sometimes, we get into sexual assault, and then eventually it comes to a point in the scenario that we're drawing in your head while your eyes are closed. And we had it this weekend. People are crying, people are shaking, all this stuff. And then on the command of threat, which I love to be choosing different people during the scenario, then by the end of it, I'll go right up behind somebody and scream threat. So they're obviously jacked up.
Yeah.
And then on the command of threats, open your eyes and start engaging the target in front of you. And you engage the target until you just assume it would be down in the scenario in your mind.
Yeah.
We saw some people do, I remember I saw one guy with the scenario we drew out. He did a bunch of headshots, 5-6 rounds. Then he went to the groin, which was interesting. He went 5-6 rounds up here, 5-6 rounds down here. I've never seen anybody do that.
Yeah.
We had another guy open up his eyes, immediately start advancing towards the target and expelled his entire magazine. The other guy that was, shedding tears, full mag, reload. So he does a full mag and everybody else is done. And we're all just standing there. Everybody's freaked out afterwards. Full mag, reload, another full mag. And I'm standing right there behind him, just making sure everything's all right.
Yep.
But either way, it's really, really an eye-opening experience. And everybody afterwards, we do a group hug. we talk about it because how Justin explained it to me is you're never going to be in a near, he calls it near ambush, but nobody's ambushing you. I guess they could be. You're in a real life circumstance. Either way, you're never going to be in a close quarters situation, having to use your pistol without being angry, afraid, scared, all these kind of crazy things. So we try to get people's emotions running high so they can feel that emotional response on the range so they don't have to feel it for the first time in real life.
That was the feedback I got. So that was after, 20 reps of like a bunch of sprints and shooting. And that was a physical stressor, right? That was a cardiovascular stressor, muscle fatigue, everything like that. But this is more emotional, mental kind of thing. And as they were describing it to me, they were like, I got just like that squeeze of adrenaline slowly. Mm-hmm. And so you start doing weird things when adrenaline starts getting in the mix.
Exactly.
Your hands might not function the same way. The way that you think and process information is completely different. And so that was a great stimulus for them. They've never seen that before either, or experienced it. Anybody on the internet in that type of training.
Yep, exactly.
Good stuff.
Yeah, some guys were saying maybe we should make some recordings of it. But sorry, what was his name? Ben, right? From Flux Defense?
Yeah.
That's the company, Flux Defense. He was running that Flux Raider. Sorry, Ben, I don't think we're going to do that because as I talked to some people about it and they're like, yeah, but what if somebody who doesn't know what that is gets a hold of it? And they're like, what the fuck are you doing?
We do a really long preface. Like, this is a training course. This is intended for this.
Yeah.
Your discretion's advised.
Yeah, so we're just going to keep that to our in-person training.
Yeah.
But we don't do it all the time. It's not every course. It's really like sometimes we do it for a private family.
Yeah.
Sometimes this instance, it really matters on the group we have too.
Yeah.
But let's talk about the course. Why not?
Yeah,
So
sure.
Tommy helped us out with concealed carbine. Had a bunch of comments online like, concealed carbine, what the heck is this? Like, how do you even conceptualize it? And they were great. I just ended up saying to that, because it would have been a long explanation, I guess you could say. I just said, you got to come to the course to find out.
Yeah.
So at the EDC Expo, we had three-hour mini courses with 15-minute breaks in between and rotations. So think about it. We had groups of 9, only had them for 3 hours, and we're trying to talk about concealing a carbine and the deployment of it. So we had a really tight time constraint. So what we ended up focusing on was simply the actual deployment of it from a bag, or I guess any concealed position, right?
Yep.
And how I usually run it is folded up or broken down with the magazine in, one not in the chamber, because that thing's in your bag. Of course, you could have safeties, and if you want to run it in the chamber, I don't care. You can have ways to cover up the trigger well, whatever you want to do.
Totally.
But we hadn't run it like that. And yeah, we just simply talked about deploying it from the bag, doing it. We started with 5-round groups at 7 yards. 5-round groups at 7 yards from a rifle, right? As all 2A professionals and all that, we shouldn't miss. But we always have it. There are some misses, and it's no big deal.
It's height over bore issues mostly.
Height over bore issues, and some people were just shooting almost too fast.
Yeah.
Breaking the trigger too quickly. And we really like to practice that grouping at the first of any class we do, because we talk about accountability of every round you shoot in self-defense as civilians or law enforcement. I can't be sending projectiles out into the world. I can't expend a full mag and then hit the target 3 times, the threat in real life 3 times. Now I've got 27 projectiles that I'm responsible for, moving at 3,000 feet per second.
Yep. And
that could cause some damage to get me into some trouble.
Yep.
So yeah, we started on grouping and deploying the rifle from the bag, but then we got into physical stress. And our reason we did that was because I feel like there is no circumstance you're going to be going to get this rifle out of this bag. Most of the time it'll be in your vehicle or something of those sorts. You're never going to go get that and actually deploy it in real life without a ton of physical stress.
Yeah.
So we had these folks run 100 meters slightly uphill through snow, mud, gravel, wet, all that kind of stuff. Grab their bag, move up to the shooting line, and then shooting targets at 100 meters away, all different size steel targets.
Yep.
Because that's also why we have the rifle system, right? To engage targets far. If it was right in front of me, I would just run with my pistol. I don't need to go get my rifle.
Yeah.
But yeah, physical stress, then the visualization training.
There was a big misconception, especially online, that it was like concealed carbine is like concealed carbine. Like what are you gonna do? Stick the barrel down your leg pants or something like that, or carrying a gigantic backpack walking around? That wasn't the case at all.
Exactly.
In any case, it was just gonna be stowed somewhere for when you need it.
Yeah, and you could, Ben from Flux Defense is the company, correct?
Yeah.
And Flux Raider is the product?
Yeah.
Yeah, so he created the Flux Raider, and it all depends on your system. You could have, like, who was the MCX, right? That's what Brian had?
Yeah.
And they make those super tiny, right?
Little folder, yeah.
How short do those go?
MCX, there's a Rattler version that can go up to like 5-inch barrel, which is...
Yeah, so that folded up could easily stick in some sort of, not like a super tiny iPad bag, but a laptop bag or something like that, where you could turn it around, draw it, and shoot.
Yeah.
So you could carry it on you, but we had it in the context during the class of why we were running to get the bag and then go shoot, because I don't carry it on me. I have my pistol on me, right? But Ben from Flux, obviously he is an advocate of carrying it on you because that's kind of his product. It fit into this tiny little bag like this big.
Yeah.
And he was deploying that weapon and getting rounds on target. Great 5-round groupings, by the way.
Yeah.
At the beginning in 2
seconds.
Yeah.
Like consistently too. He was so quick. And you can tell he's drilled that and tested his product thousands of times.
Yeah.
It wasn't anything new for him.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you could carry it on you, but like Tommy said, we started that at the beginning of the class, but then we went away from it because 99% of our people attending that class, besides him, were probably not going to be carrying on them.
Right.
But it's in a vehicle, in your home, somewhere where it's ready to deploy. You're going to have to move to get to it.
Yeah.
So what are some takeaways as being a mentor of this class that you had from Concealed Carbine?
Man, just sharing information, right? And so I like that we don't stand there pretending like we're the expert on anything in that field. And what we say is the only way to do things. Like, our way isn't the only way. There's like a million ways to do it, and we share information with each other. Like, oh, I had that same setup. What worked for me is like this different type of shooting position. Or I had that same type of bag. I like to place the gun in this way so I can get it out a lot quicker so the sling doesn't snag on things. It was just sharing of information and actually like having a conversation with somebody else that's done the same thing and comparing notes.
Yes, I really like how a few of the groups and how we like to run all our classes is, you know, mentors are instructors, so we're here to guide you. You've been a part of a bunch of classes.
Yeah.
And it's great when we're like, hey, we're not the end-all be-all solution. We're always adapting. And I love how we get people to interact with the, I guess you could say, teachers. They give their 2 cents. Like a couple of the precision rifle guys, and we're talking about barrier work at the Concealed Carbine class. Because, hey, if you can get on something, maybe your vehicle, maybe a pole, I don't know, whatever, right? Out in the real life to help you stabilize, to make more of a precise shot. They were even chiming in, oh, yeah, you know, in PRS we do this. So all those kind of things.
Yeah, I learned a lot from those guys too.
Yeah, for sure. And they learned a lot from us.
Yeah.
So how important, I mean, I already know what you're going to say, I guess. But I just want to get the topic going.
Okay. All right.
So we've been doing a lot of stress shoots and physical exertion with shooting lately. I don't think there's a session we've done, because we're shooting 2-3 times a week, and then the classes. So we're always shooting. And besides teaching a class, we always demonstrate, but I'm not going to do a stress shoot because it takes a lot of time in front of the class, right?
Yeah.
But in our own shooting, we're always doing stress shoots lately and slowly building it up. So how important would you say that is? And like, what's your mental process preparing for those things?
Yeah, like we've done it so frequently and consistency that I don't remember us doing it any other way. Like long are the days where we're just standing in an indoor range in a lane, just standing there without a holster and just shooting off of a table or something like that.
Yeah.
But to prepare for something like this, of course, you work out in your spare time, even when you're not shooting, to keep your cardiovascular up. Make sure you get your exercise in every single day. And the stuff that you wear and the gear that you set up has to be mobile as well. You know, your shoes, the gear that you wear, how much it swings around, everything is in consideration for that.
Exactly. I think one of the things I've taken from it is the slow progression that we've been doing.
There you go.
I remember you talked about it like as a fighter, you know, you're shadow boxing.
Right.
And then you've got your coach in your corner, which is each other while we're training. And then, you know, you're shadow boxing. So that is essentially just our basic presentation and shooting.
Right.
And then you get into, you know, bag work, pad work, all the different kind of stuff.
Yep.
And that's what we've been kind of doing a few weeks ago, which was adding bits of stress into it, but then still maintaining that marksmanship. And I believe in the next few weeks, I'd say we really start ramping up the intensity where it's getting towards sparring and like competition level of physical exertion while shooting.
Yeah, that's the great point. Yeah, we don't just get out of the truck, load our stuff, and then just do a 300-meter sprint in our full kit.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I like that we have that progression.
Yeah, exactly. It's set up in a way kind of similar to your fitness program, right? You don't just start from 0 to 100. Maybe you have a 3-month block, and then you have your endurance phase and your strength phase and your power, or however you want to switch that up. Either way, you build up to it over time. And now I feel like there is not one stress shoot that would intimidate me. I mean, of course, things would, before, okay, you got to run 800 meters. Obviously, that's going to you're going to be worried about it mentally because you're like, fuck, that's going to suck. But I have no issues with thinking, okay, how am I going to control my breathing? How am I going to adapt to it? Because we've done it so much.
Yeah. I think a lot of people who shoot just as a recreational sport don't recognize that there's a lot of variables they can add in slowly to get the most out of their training. First, you start in a range and you're just working on your basic grips, trigger control, and getting your basic marksmanship in. Of course, the next frontier is time. So they start using a bell on the buzzer, try to do it within a certain amount of time. You add distance to see if you can still nail those shots out in longer ranges. And then now what we're doing is adding multiple scenarios where you're shooting multiple targets with an elevated heart rate and all that stuff in between with time on top of it. And so it's the degrees of difficulty that you need to keep stepping up in order to get the best out of training, because if you're solid, just standing there shooting, add something else. Add a different element.
And if you're trying to prepare, I'd say for competition too, especially if you're going to do tactical games, but even USPSA, I mean, there is some sort of element of fitness to it, especially I feel like mobility and agility.
Yeah, because you're not just standing there shooting. Sometimes you're crouched over on a single knee, like shooting under stuff as well. You have to have good hip mobility, good ankle mobility.
Yep, and like we always talk about in our courses, the fitter you are, the better you're going to be able to the better you will be able to handle a self-defense situation as well as competition, anything. You're going to be able to handle it better if you're fit versus you're not.
Right.
Even just stress in real life, I'd say.
Yeah, I think so. What you've been doing, I've been doing as well recently, is doing interval training, where you spike your heart rate up as high as you can get it, and then you have a short period of rest to see how fast you can lower your heart rate down to like a normal, like functioning state, and then going back up again.
Exactly.
And doing that several times just to get that type of cardiovascular fitness.
And that's also why I set up the concealed carbine intervals like that.
Yeah.
Because of course we wouldn't just want them going back and forth because they would get gassed out.
Yeah.
But that physical stress, once they did about 10 rotations of sprint 100 yards, grab my bag, shoot off this barrier and the prone or the kneeling or in the standing, by the end of it, it's starting to build up and their endurance is starting to suffer.
Yeah.
But then they get that wake-up call, like, I need to train more.
That was the consistent feedback from everybody. Did you hear that? It's like, I gotta work on my cardio.
Yeah, every class, I said at the beginning too, the concealed carbine, every class we have feedback that says cardio or strength, endurance, whatever it is, fitness is a huge thing that we push a lot and a huge takeaway everybody gets from us.
Yeah.
So what are you doing, or what do you think the next step is with your training in preparation for the tactical games, right? Yeah. So you're doing the tactical games, teaming up with Ryan.
Yep.
I'm teaming up with Braden. Who else do we have? Chris is teaming up with Sam, right?
Yep.
And then there's one more group.
I think Josh might link up with Austin or some other guys who wants to come as well. Yeah.
So we're bringing a bunch of different teams to that tactical games in St. George here in a couple of months.
Yeah.
So obviously we're going to be training together. But what is your plan? Like, what's your plan to actually perform on game day?
Man, the diet, I think, is going to be really important, man. Trying to stay as light as possible, but then the night or the morning before, get a good chunk of carbs in so you can do 8 stages of that stuff just to make sure you're set.
Yeah, it's 4 events each day over 2 days.
2 days.
Yeah, for the carb loading, if you actually look into the data on it, I believe it's 2 to 3 days ahead of time. You need to be taking in a massive surplus.
Oh, man. So 2 to 3 days. That's good to know.
As in, like, actual endurance athletes will do like 600 to 800 grams of carbohydrates.
Holy smokes.
I don't do that much.
But we're also not running marathons either.
That's sickening.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's not sickening. You got to do what you got to do, and it's a performance-based thing. I can just imagine myself eating 800 grams of carbohydrates. That's a ton.
Yeah.
And I really like a higher fat diet. I like it a lot.
Yeah.
But either way, I mean, you say we're not running a marathon, but it is 4 max effort events over 2 days.
Pretty much you're spent, yeah.
Yeah. I wonder, Jacob Hepner?
Mm-mm.
You haven't seen, he's a big-time CrossFit athlete, and now he's switched to tactical games, and he's kicking ass.
Nice.
I said in that podcast with Scott, I said, I don't think anybody's going to beat him. I'll say it right now.
Oh, is he coming?
I think he is going to St. George. I hope he's not doing the team so we can do something,
man.
or he's going to kick our ass.
Yeah.
But I am sure it'd be really interesting. Maybe we could tag him in this or something. I'd be really interested to hear his nutrition protocol for the games, the tactical games. Because I am sure he is doing some sort of loading regimen, and then during the days of, I wonder what his carbohydrate intake is going to be like.
I wonder, yeah. I've never been exposed to this. So in fighting, you weigh in 24 hours before your fight, and then the 24 hours before your fight, you're just rehydrating. Just to cut weight there, you're just cutting water primarily. So you're just drinking electrolytes and salts just to have the water stick to your muscles. And then you get some carbs in the night before, and that's it, man.
Yeah.
The weeks up to that, you're lowering your caloric intake, like barely any carbs or salt, really, like that. It's a really dangerous and unhealthy way to do it. But here, it's just like, what is the optimal state? I don't have to weigh in. So what's the ideal state for my diet for me to perform my best?
Yeah. I think you nailed it with being lighter. Honestly, being lighter is in almost any application going to help you.
Right.
Especially if you're just thinking about fitness in regards to health. The lighter you are, more likely you're going to live longer.
Yeah.
I believe there's some stats out there about that. Lighter people are going to live longer. Simply because the lighter you are, and I'm not going to say you should have less muscle, but like we talked about in fighting, super jacked dudes, all that muscle requires oxygen.
That's what I learned real quick, man. The jack dudes I was like afraid of, but then I recognized that they can't go that long. In the second, third, fourth, fifth round, they tend to gas themselves. You're right. Yeah, so it's like, it's funny because nowadays in MMA, it's like the long, lanky guys are the just absolute savages. Man.
Exactly.
It's nuts. Yeah.
So I'm be really interested to see who's listening to this when we actually put this stuff out. What would be some advice you'd give somebody who is looking to get into shooting? I feel like we'll have some, a bunch of followers we have and people that know the channel, and I think there's probably a lot of new gun owners in there.
Yeah.
So it'd be some advice you'd give to them.
Man, first find a community or a group of friends that have the same mindset. That's how it was in MMA. It's how it was in shooting. You need to find somebody that's about it too, who wants to learn, because then you learn together. You can compare notes. You learn twice as quick. Because if you're the only person pushing your own standards and trying to try and do different things, it's difficult, man. But then you have brothers around you that you can feed off of their same energy. That's like the first place to start.
I can see that. So let's say now they have found a group of guys or gals or whatever.
Yeah.
And then what?
Man, just start on your basics, really. Like I always shit on people's doing indoor ranges in a lane, but you have to start on the basics.
You do need to.
Even today, it's not like we're doing anything super cool and tactical or anything like that. We're drilling the fundamentals.
The first hour of our 2-hour shooting today was on paper, the basics. Yeah, we did some fast doubles, we did some quals, and we did our warm-up. But it was pretty much all trying to be consistent with the fundamentals: grip, trigger squeeze, follow through, stance, all that stuff.
Yep. Keep it simple too,
Mm-hmm.
The internet is good and bad for these reasons. You see some super high-speed dudes doing really complex shooting courses and everything, and you think you need to get there eventually. But it's like the people the division between somebody who's okay and somebody who's great is just their grasp on the fundamentals.
I can see that.
Yeah.
And then you apply the fundamentals at higher and higher speeds.
Pretty much, yeah.
One thing I really appreciated when I was 3 or 4 years ago, I made the decision getting into some work that I needed to be the best I could be in reference to the qualifications that they want us to uphold, because I want to make money, right? And I wanted to be a part of something bigger, right? So I really took a deep dive. People are going to be like, oh, that's lame, into T-Rex Arms content on YouTube. I love how he shows the target. That's also why I always try to do that with us too.
Yeah.
Like for instance, we're going to have some footage today of we're doing pop, 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 double taps, kind of like Ben Stover stuff. 7, 5, 3, perfect. And I was shooting the 10 millimeter, so there's a lot more recoil. backed it up to 15. Nothing should change, but I changed. Because, you know, with the 10 millimeter, I was thinking, oh, I need to push back into it, which I've said many, many times, I'm not an advocate for that. But it's just a natural reaction if something's going bang in your hands to push back against it. Yeah. But we have to get past it. So, oh man, that first one was like Alpha Delta. I almost wish I missed so we didn't even see the hole. It was literally like on the edge of the paper and I laughed. So we went up there, checked the target, came back, did it again, and then 5 alphas and a nice Charlie right next to the A zone. Yep. At 15, pop with the 10 millimeter.
Right.
So I like how Lucas from T-Rex Arms has so much content of him just doing all sorts of high-speed drills, but then just all sorts of basic shit.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where a lot of our inspiration came from with the stuff we like to put out, because we just want to show people raw training, and like Tommy said, that we're about it.
Yeah.
Because, you know, Tommy was talking about a course he took back in the day, or a course it is, I don't know.
I took a few, yeah.
Where he assumed that maybe the people teaching weren't about it, or do you want to expand on that?
Yeah, it's just like I expected to show up and start sending some rounds, and learning some basics and doing the drills and things like that. But I recognized really quickly that they were just good at teaching theories, talking about it. And then I found that they actually didn't shoot that much. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, how often does these people actually shoot in order for them to be teaching me these things? Mm-hmm. It was the same thing in fighting, and I think Jeremy was the same way. He was like, he doesn't feel comfortable like teaching about self-defense unless he was actually fighting and training on a day-to-day basis. Mm-hmm. Even today I don't feel comfortable even sharing anything in fighting or shooting unless I've put in the work and I know that the stuff works.
Exactly.
Kind of thing.
I was talking to a good buddy the other day, and he said, oh man, you know, like everything's going really, really well with Tactical Cowboy. I think the biggest reason is because we are about it. We don't just talk about it. We're out there training, every single day, because if you add fitness into it, which I think you should, there isn't a day that we're not shooting, working out, all that kind of stuff. We're shooting at least 2-3 times a week.
Yeah.
So he was like, yeah, man, you know, we got Blake, our badass videographer guy, Beehive Media. Met him last year for the tactical retreat, and the relationship just blossomed from there. But he was like, yeah, dude, the best thing you've done, I think, is having Blake at almost every one of your events. And I was like, I agree with you. You know, nowadays we live in the age of whatever you want to call it, SEO, social media, whatever.
Yeah.
Online content, video content, pictures, stuff like that. And he's like, the best thing you've done is that, because you've got all that video and everything. And I said, I agree with you. It's been important, but I think the most important thing is we're actually out there doing this shit. Because you can never get video of it almost every fucking day if you're not actually doing it.
Right.
Because it's not like we go out and we could do this, where you could go out one range day in a month, film for 4 or 5 hours, get all this different stuff, and then trickle it out. Yeah. But our stuff is genuinely almost always the day of or right after.
Yeah.
Because, I can't hold a video for months, because then it just wouldn't make sense, because we're doing stuff every day. So it's really cool how we can put it out on a consistent basis. And I feel like guys like, you know, everybody likes to hate on him, but Lucas from T-Rex Arms, I feel like he does the same thing.
He does, yeah.
I feel like he's got to be out there nonstop.
Yeah. He does it the right way, I think. You know, he's out there training himself, watching himself make mistakes. He's pretty hard on himself, like throwing a delta and stuff. He's
as you should be.
Kind of thing, you know, and he goes and adjusts it. He does it until he gets it right. But he has film guys out there, because he can kill 2 birds with 1 stone. He can market his brand, market his way, his thought process with training, but then also put in some work as well to test his gear, test different setups, different types of firearms setups and platforms. Mm-hmm. So I think it's the right thing, you know. It's not, you know, at first I was apprehensive about social media because, you know, how it is. It's just like, oh, look how much of a badass I am, I'm shooting and that kind of thing. Yeah. And I was uncomfortable with that. But now it's like, if you want to have more people join the cause and adopt the same mindset, you have to share it with the world in that same way. Even if it's just a short bit of content. This is what we do and this is why, and we're consistent.
I agree. I was worried about it too at first, you know, trying to put yourself out there and all that stuff. But I think once the ball started rolling, and then it became, it's almost like, for me, and I think a lot of other people probably feel this, it's almost like self-accountability.
Yeah.
Because at this point, you know, the Tactical Cowboy family is growing, and we want to, as mentors, we want to lead the way. You can't lead the way if you're not out there fucking doing it.
Right.
You can't be like, oh, I'm sitting here and I'll tell you, make sure you go shoot. That's bullshit.
Right.
So the only way we can actually lead the way is get out there, train, but how are they going to know if we're training? We have to do some sort of video or recording or all that kind of thing. And that's why you'll see sometimes we've got Blake here and everything is super high quality and high speed and badass. And other times it's with an iPhone.
Just a phone, yeah.
Yep, because it's one of those things where I like to show people that you can do it too, and you don't have to just go to the range once a month. And it's like personal accountability, like, man, the TCTS family, if they don't see us hit the range for 2 weeks straight, I think people are going to be like, what the fuck are they doing?
Yeah, what are you doing? Just, yeah.
Sitting on their asses and everything.
That's what I did too. Like even when you weren't here, you were overseas working or something like that. I would just record videos of my matches and training and send it to you. It's like, yo, I'm training while you're out. I'm not just sitting on my ass. It's like a bit of accountability too, because I knew when you came back, we're gonna hit the range hard. You know?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. And speaking on that, the mentors, our mentors group is really, really squared away.
Yeah.
All guys from different backgrounds, like Tommy said. Ranger dudes, Green Berets, law enforcement guys, there's Marines, civilians, competition shooters, guys that are only focused on self-defense, don't even shoot competition. We got a lot of different backgrounds, and we train together all the time and always hold each other to that high standard. And that's what I think has helped me a ton, is having a group like you're talking about, always there. You can send them, if they're not actually training together, you can send them to the group chat.
Yeah.
And guys can help critique our form, do a little trash talking.
Yep.
Stuff like that.
All day.
Nice.
Yep.
Awesome. So, interesting question for you. What has your experience been? I guess this is kind of, Tommy's a mentor, but he's also taken a bunch of our training. And there is obviously going to be some sort of bias in this question because you've done a bunch of our training and now we're friends and now you're a mentor.
Oh.
But try to leave as much bias as you can out of it.
Okay.
Like, what has your experience been with our classes and our style in comparison to, like you said, you've done a lot of training before that some has been good, some has been bad.
Yeah.
If you want to name those classes, I don't care.
Nah.
You don't have to if you don't want to.
Yeah.
Maybe just say which ones have been good.
Yeah.
But either way, what has your experience been with us compared to stuff you've done in the past?
It's the stuff that we do here, I love, but then the previous classes I went to, it's just a lot of theoretical kind of talking about things. They'll stand there and talk about the very fine and minute details of something until everybody's just eyes glaze over and we're talking for like 30 minutes to an hour. And then maybe we send a few rounds to test, and that happens like consistently. And it's like a lot of standing around the range. I don't have the best attention span. And so some people like start chatting with each other. You have to get them all focused and back in again. And it just happens over and over and over again. And of course, a lot of new shooters, you have to go over safety and that kind of thing with them. But the stark difference is that what we do is just like reps all day. We take one very simple concept like the draw and getting on target and pulling the trigger and doing that like hundreds of thousands of times over and over and over and over again. And then when you make a mistake, we share notes like, oh, I did that too. This is what I did to fix it. We give that a shot and try it and drill it until it's almost impossible for you to make that mistake again. That's the difference between somebody who knows how to do it well and somebody who's like completely unable to make that mistake because they drilled it so many times before.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
Yeah, I always try to, I always try to construct these classes like how I would want to be trained.
Yeah.
And I've done a ton of different training courses and schools and this or that. And it really comes down to, I always have the best time and feel like I always learn the most by doing.
Yeah.
Of course, you have to talk about it. And we do have those points in the classes where, we're talking about grip, side alignment, trigger, breathing control, all sorts of crazy stuff. But the actual application is what sticks for me.
Yeah.
So we try to make the course like that because we've gotten really good feedback that people learn a ton from it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Of course, the first few reps are rough, like not as great as you want it to be. But you need to get those bad runs out so you can see what mistakes you're making so you know what to fix. Get it all out of your system and then eventually you'll start progressing and fixing those issues. But you don't find that until you actually do the thing. Not enough repetitions, I'm thinking, for most of these people. Do the thing.
Yeah. Don't just talk about it, be about it.
Yeah.
And I know there's financial constraints for a lot of people and, you work 5-10 hour days and you have a wife and 3-4 kids. That's tough. I know a ton of guys like Ethan. daily dry fire. You remember him from that class you took with him.
Mm-hmm.
He dry fires all the time.
All day.
I don't know how long he does it. I think he does it for 20 minutes, 30 minutes. I don't think he's down there for hours. But he did the dry fire every day for a year, and now he's kept it going.
Yeah.
And same thing kind of with social media. He held himself accountable because he's like, I got to share on my story or whatever my dry fire session. And he performs really, really well just with dry fire.
Yeah.
And I know he doesn't shoot as much as we do. He shoots, I think he tries to go on the weekend. But he performs quite well for the amount of rounds he's been able to send down range.
Yeah, his motor skills are perfect. You know, like his reloads are great. His draw and his presentations there, you can tell he's done it a bajillion times. And it's not to say you can hit the range every single day, but any chance you can get any kind of repetition in to work on those fine motor skills, do it. You know, there's a benefit to everything. But then, of course, hit the range whenever you can.
Yeah, so you're married, right?
Yeah.
Married with a son. Mm-hmm. What's his name?
Lenny.
Lenny. And what's your wife's? Lennox?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. So like the printer.
Yeah. I guess. Lennox Lewis was one of my favorite boxers growing up.
Oh, that's interesting. That's cool.
Yeah.
Nice. And what's her name again?
Bryn.
So how'd you guys meet?
Let's see. When I first worked here, I worked for a software communications company. They're a voice over IP company. And I was a developer at the same office, you know. And so I was like any other guy, you know, I tried not to like harass the girls at the office. Always kept my head down, like, why is she talking to me? Like I'm trying to learn kind of thing. She always came and like
she approached you
all day, man. Damn. It was so uncomfortable. Her sister worked in the office too.
So she was almost like overbearing.
Yeah. And so I was like, your sister's the office admin. Stop harassing me, kind of thing, you know? Because as men, you know. The last thing we want to do is to make women feel uncomfortable around us at the gym, at the office, anything like that. Because there's creeps out there, and you just want them to be able to do their thing and not have an issue.
Exactly. Interesting. So I think we'll get into this a little bit. I think something cool about the Tactical Cowboy Podcast is we want to talk about all sorts of different things. Today we've talked about your background, shooting, fitness, and most of that kind of stuff. Maybe we get into a little relationship stuff.
Yeah, sure.
Because I've noticed a lot of guys, especially young guys. I mean, I don't talk to like 16-year-olds or something, but I talk to like above 18-year-olds because they've got guns and stuff. I know they're having trouble with women these days, like dating, finding women, how to approach them, because social media and the internet has changed the game.
Yeah.
So obviously we've met our significant others already, but what advice would you give a young single guy, young 18-year-old man in 2023?
Yeah,
it's trying to find a good woman.
To find a good woman. That's going to be difficult.
You weren't expecting this.
Yeah, it's about... Oh, man, I wish when I was younger that I didn't care so much about what people thought of me.
Ooh, yeah.
The insecurity thing will just wreck your perception of yourself and the way you interface with other people. To not give a fuck about anything like that and just be genuine to who you are is a very important skill to have. But it's hard to learn that when you're so young and you haven't been put out into the world like that. You know, you learn that as you gain experience and you grow older. But somehow bottle that and give it to a young person is just the most powerful thing.
I think you nailed it when you said gain experience. You could do that in a bunch of different ways. For me, it was the military.
Oh, good.
Right?
Yeah.
For you, it sounded like it was college.
College and fighting.
I think when you actually got into the fighting stuff is really when it took off.
Yeah.
So I think stress is what's going to help gain the experience.
Yeah.
So somehow feeling stressed, whether it's military, fighting, physical fitness, those are the things that actually help you mature and not care what people say, I guess you could say.
Yeah, because you've seen and done worse and been through a whole bunch of different... Getting my ass kicked on a daily, weekly basis by some of my friends at the gym has been one of the most beneficial things for my own ego. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It wasn't the end of the world that I didn't do a good thing in a round, or I got my ass kicked that day, or I got tapped like 10 times in a single training session. It was a learning process for me. And I didn't have to have this high and mighty perception of myself. And it was okay to fail as long as I didn't give up. That's the thing about Jeremy. I was like, it's okay to fail, but if you ever give up, like that's a thing he cannot accept.
Oh, shit. Nice.
Everybody gets their ass kicked, you know?
Oh, for sure.
Kind of
and we all fail. I've failed at so many things. Before the military, during, after, all that kind of stuff. But I think it's the failures that kind of teach you that I can do it.
Right.
Or I guess not that you can do it because you failed, right?
But you'll be okay.
Yeah, exactly. That you'll be okay.
Yeah, so if you get your ass kicked just for fun, what's the worst that could happen going up to a young lady and say, hey, I like you. Could I have a little bit of your time?
Yeah, so let's get back to it. So you said be yourself.
Yeah.
Okay, and then for most guys aren't as lucky as you where they're not getting approached on a consistent basis. You were pursued, which is cool. So most guys don't have that luxury. Maybe they do, maybe they don't sense it. I don't know.
Yeah, sometimes they don't.
But I feel like for most of my experience, it's been, I pursue to some extent, and then,
it was the case for me as well. Up until that point, I've never met like a girl like that, ever.
Yeah.
That's probably why I married her. The rest of them were just like typical women who are apprehensive of weird strangers talking to them.
Yeah.
You have to present yourself in the best light without making them feel uncomfortable. That whole game.
Yeah.
It's stressful, but yeah.
So what advice would you give? So be yourself, but then how do you actually, get a woman to go on a date with you and prove that you're a suitable mate?
It's you just have to let them get to know you, unfortunately. It's difficult for strangers to really make a fair judgment of anyone within a few minutes.
You know what the first thing they're going to judge is? Your appearance.
Yeah, for sure.
So that means be fit.
Be fit, for sure. And also, meet them in places where you do things that you like. Meet them at the gym. Meet them out training or at the office or certain events that you normally do in the same community kind of thing.
Yeah, for me, my experience, I don't think I've ever met a woman at a bar that I would have wanted to settle down.
Right.
That's for sure.
Yeah, that's a completely different kind of people.
Yep. But some people do, and that's totally fun.
Totally fun.
Because maybe they like to go to bars. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, nowadays, that's not my thing for sure.
Yeah, I can see why. Because they go to bars for a very particular reason, not to find your life mate or anything like that.
Yeah.
They're just there to get experiences and be young and do whatever they want.
So yeah, I think we crushed it so far. And I've been asking Tommy all this stuff. Do you want to hit me with a few things and then we call it a day?
Oh man, short of just asking you about the cool military stuff like I always do, as a civilian, I'm just asking Devin about cool stuff in the military. Because up until now, I've only understood it through the realm of video games or movies and things like that.
So you haven't had any other military buddies?
I have, but there's the military and then there's the tip of the spear. You know what I mean? There's people who are in the Army Reserve and ROTC, and then there's people who have actually been deployed into war zones kind of thing and have to perform at a high level, otherwise at risk of their own team members and people around you and the mission failure. And that's a completely different level of stress and performance than a lot of people in the military, I find. Yeah. Yeah. So I think a lot of, from my perspective, I'll ask a bunch of questions that I think just your average person would want to know. What is the transition from military life to civilian life like?
Oh, interesting question. Yeah, it was pretty easy for me, but I don't know why. I think I just really adapt to everything quite well. I had a plan that I wanted to do kinesiology and physiology studying in college. Yeah. So yeah, I just did my 5 years, and then a year out from getting out, I got my application in at University of Illinois and got accepted, and it kind of just flowed from there. But a lot of people do have a hard time with transitioning. Yeah. And I think it's because that they don't have a self-identity, So the only thing they identify with, which is a great thing to identify with, is your military time, your platoon, squad, teammates, all that kind of stuff. Right. And that becomes your identity. But then they decide to get out. And I think for a lot of those guys, it might be a better idea just to stay in. Because they get out, and now they're I don't have anybody, because everybody's different. They're with dudes that were squared away. It could even be in the Army Reserve, but they're probably still more squared away than the general civilian out there. Right. In terms of self-discipline and all that. Now they're around all these people that they're not like them, and then they don't know what to do. But they thought there was going to be the grass is greener on the other side. Yeah. And it's not that way. I've met a lot of guys when we talk and it comes down to, why don't you just stay in? Yeah. And they kind of the grass is greener answer, which sucks. Yeah. That's unfortunate. And I see that a lot, especially with depression. And of course they pick up, addictions and drinking and stuff to fill in that gap. But it seems like that you guys just need a place to put that energy. And especially if you don't have the people around you with that same energy, it's now what? Who am I anymore? Yeah. Also, it comes down to a lot of guys with, that's their identity. And also in the military, you're told to do everything. Oh, yeah. And then everything's provided for you as well. you're told to work out every morning and then you do it because they provide a facility or a site or however that works.
Yeah.
Food, training, marksmanship, fitness, all this stuff is provided, and you're told to do it and you're forced to do it. So then it keeps you healthy physically, mentally, to some extent, all those kind of things. Then you get out, nobody's telling you to do it anymore. Yeah. Where for me, I was already really into fitness and a couple other things before I went in. So I was even, doing the morning workout for PT and then going to do other stuff after, which I was probably overtrained and doing all sorts of fucked up stuff to my body.
Yeah.
Training way too hard for not optimal output. But either way, I think a lot of it is then they get out on their own and no one's telling them, then they start to slack. And like you said, then they get into this rut and there's nobody around them to help push them. And they're not happy. And then they have depression and drug and alcohol abuse and all that stuff.
Yeah. You're just much different from the military people I've seen just in the past few years. And you know, there's been several suicides just here locally of ex-Army Ranger people, ex-military people.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I look at you and you just like adapt so well. You know what I mean? And that's, to me, for people who have seen the things that you've seen and what they've seen, it's starkly different, And what do you think that general difference is? Because I'm not seeing that. I'm seeing a lot of like suicides going on.
That's true. They are happening just right in our backyard. I'm sure a lot of people know about those. I think it comes down, I just think it comes down to having an identity, your own identity, That's why, obviously, I loved all the guys I was in with, and I really identified with 2nd Ranger Battalion, but I also always identified just as myself in terms of just who I was, and I think it comes down to the fitness thing, for me at least. So that's really what I was into before. So that was always my rock when I was in. Like I always was striving to be a quality, infantryman, ranger, all this stuff. But at the same time, I also always had my own goals on the side in terms of fitness.
Yeah.
And I, do hiking, running, lifting, heavy weights, whatever. I always had my own goals. So that never changed. Before I was in, while I was in, I always had that focus in my life too. And after, I still have that focus. Because, like I said, a lot of the issue is they have no purpose. Oh, I guess that could be the word purpose, right?
Yeah.
I always had purpose with fitness throughout all these different phases. Versus a lot of people, they don't have purpose as much. They get in, they have purpose. They get out, the grass is going to be greener.
Yeah.
And then there is no purpose, and they don't know how to construct it.
Right.
Yeah.
That makes sense. I'm still skeptical though, because you're just like too positive. Because I ask them like, dude, do you have like PTSD? Do you have flashbacks and stuff? And of course, like tough guys mostly, like, no, I'm fine, dude. Are you kidding me? Kind of thing,
Mm-hmm.
But I've seen that you've just been able to use your energy for something positive and adapt so well.
Yeah, I think just a lot of vets, we need to apply ourselves.
Yeah.
Because we have tons of skills, but it's like, I was in the infantry, I was a ranger, I was whatever, a cook. I guess that would actually apply to outside the military.
Yeah.
Whatever, I was infantry, right?
Yeah.
And my skills don't matter out here, and they do though, because I would say if you go to almost any local business, even just big places like Walmart, there probably is a severe lack of leadership.
Right.
Big time. I've noticed that in places for sure.
Yeah.
And they're looking for people that have leadership skills, discipline, all those things to lead in their business. So you might not be a tech guy, but kind of like how Jocko Willink does, right?
Yeah, he does leadership training.
Yeah, he goes, So it's not like he's like, I know I'm going to go to Facebook because I know about social media. I'm going to go to Rogue Fitness because I know how to build equipment. I'm going to go teach people how to, I haven't been to one of his seminars, but I imagine something along the lines of discipline, leadership.
Ownership.
I just imagine he's so funny. Good.
It's going to be hard? Good.
Yeah.
4:30 in the morning? Good.
Yeah.
I love that guy, man.
One thing interesting to talk about we're going to get on a different tangent now, but me and Braden were talking about this recently with physical fitness and that mentality. It's a great mentality to have, but if your job makes you stay up till midnight, there's no reason to get up at 4:30.
Right.
Yeah, I'm a hard ass to get up at 4:30, but if you're not giving yourself optimal sleep, you're never going to perform optimally.
Yeah.
So you have to recover. So I love the 4:30 good, but I I mean, I don't know if he only sleeps 3 or 4 hours a night. I doubt it. I'm sure he goes to bed early.
Yeah.
We go to bed, me and my lady, at like 8:30 every night.
Solid.
She gets up at 4 to go work out. I don't need to get up that early to go work out, so I just get up at 6.
Yeah.
So I still get a solid 9 hours of sleep every night.
Yeah.
But if I was staying up, I wouldn't stay up until midnight if I didn't have to, right? But if I had to on a consistent basis, I would sleep till like 9 or 10. Because we need that optimal recovery for physical health, mental health, all those kind of things.
That's really refreshing to hear, man. Because I listen to a lot of Jocko, some David Goggins. I'm like, when do you sleep? He's like, never. I'll sleep when I die. You know, but they don't understand that they'll just run their bodies into the ground if you don't take care of them. And you're at your best if you get well rested. You know?
Sometimes you do got to push through, I guess. I guess that's the caveat.
What's the balance, you know?
I don't know what the balance is. Maybe, you join the military and then they put you through those challenges where little to no sleep, high physical exertion, you want to quit. But you still got to find those challenges. For us, the 9X challenge, physically for myself, is going to be obviously running a business. That's a challenge in itself. But tactical games.
Yeah.
So that's like my thing now. And of course, tactical games, we could chat about that. Me and Scott did for sure. About it isn't even that tactical, right? Like there is no tactics. It's just tactical because you're shooting and you got armor on and everything.
Yeah.
But it's just a fun way to challenge yourself and meet people.
Yeah.
And I think they do a good job about that.
Yeah, I think it's an awesome, cool competition. I'm excited to compete in it, for sure.
I do wish because I told you now, you don't carry your rifle around. Mm-hmm. I get it, muzzles going everywhere. But if the guns are clear, it should be fine. I still don't think even with a clear gun, you should point it at anybody.
Right.
It just sucks how when they first started, before I got into it, I remember seeing the pictures and videos, they're carrying this heavy implement, but they still have their rifle slung to them.
Yeah.
It makes sense. Where now, and I get it, if you don't want to muzzle people, but it makes it less and less tactical the more you take out of it. Right. And of course I get it, you got to clear out your gun between every I like to call them intervals, but every intermediate piece when you go back and forth with your implements during a course of fire. But it's always oh man. When we do that, when we train at our range, which is the most badass range in Utah, by the way, we do whatever the hell we want.
Yeah, pretty much.
But it's just us or a couple other guys, so we're not
worried about. They're doing that because one guy effed up and ruined it for everybody.
Yep. And my buddy who is probably going to listen to this, Kyle Flint, we were at an event and something happened and he'll laugh about it on his own. That's all I'm going to say.
Oh, no.
He's laughing to himself right now.
Yeah.
Anyways, what else you got?
Man, from a different perspective, right? I want to hear your perspective on coming back to civilian life and seeing what the political landscape is like. There's a whole bunch of stuff which I find are distractions, right? And they're turning just average Americans on each other on subjects that wouldn't normally. You see a lot of stuff about the economy, about racism, about politics, about gender identity, all that stuff. What are you seeing overall that's the biggest problem plaguing America right now?
Oh, okay. So is it politics versus paying attention when I was in or out?
Yeah.
Or, we'll hit that first.
I know that you don't like paying attention to the news.
So, everybody paid attention during right? Because they just put you in your house and they made you pay attention to it. Yeah. Probably a strategic move. I don't know. Whatever. Can't make any money off this video, so we're just saying it. Hopefully it doesn't get banned though, because I said.
That'd be interesting. Yeah.
I can bleep it out.
Yeah.
You might have to.
Yeah.
That might be a good idea.
Yeah.
Anyways, when I was in, I didn't even think about politics one time. So I was in during the Obama years, and I didn't. So being at Ranger Regiment, we have all the funding and everything. I have heard from guys that were in the regular Army that Trump years versus Obama years was completely different. Apparently during Trump years, they got tons more funding, tons more range time. I know when I was in, it was non-stop range time training. But my buddies, I went through basic that were in the regular Army. Not that there's anything wrong with regular Army, not saying like that. But they said they were going to the range infantrymen once a month and getting 1 or 2, 3 magazines to shoot.
Whoa. Because
the funding difference.
Yeah.
But I never paid attention to politics when I was in. So I don't really know that much about Obama's administration, but besides what I've researched, which is a good amount, now that I'm older or whatever, I guess you could say. I remember being in back then and guys talking shit on him. And I was just like, I was naive. I would say, well, everything seems fine from my perspective. I don't notice anything, so I'm sure he's not that bad.
Yeah.
That's something that people that don't pay attention would say, right?
Yeah.
Then got out. College, didn't really think about it. Similar thing. Obviously, I was a Trump supporter, like a lot of people are. And he's got his ups and downs, but overall, I was like, this guy's pretty squared away, pro-America and all those kind of things. So, where was I going with that? Yeah, started paying attention to it then. Was I going to school then? No. So then graduated, then got into some extracurricular activities to make some money, hold myself to higher standards, all those things. Met some really awesome guys, and then happened. And then I really started paying attention to politics.
Right. It was interesting, right?
Yes. So I started paying attention and started seeing a lot of things and started researching back into, Obama type stuff and even many, many presidents before him, learning the dichotomy, I guess you could say, about Republicans and Democrats and how politics worked and how I would probably say now, as much research as I've done and talked to so many people, pretty much all of it is corrupt because with absolute power comes absolute corruption, or what is that saying?
Yeah. What comes with absolute power comes with corruption, absolutely.
There's something like that, yeah. I think that's pretty close. But either way, I think both sides have issues there.
Yeah.
But now I think there is a big political divide, and it's fueled. A lot of it's social media content, right? Because a lot of people don't watch the news.
Yeah.
So you're just constantly getting bombarded with things that, like, I'm not on TikTok, but you talked about TikTok, how they'll show you one thing and whatever they do, go ahead and hit that.
Yeah, whatever you respond to, have the longest view times or likes to, they keep feeding you that same content every single time because they want you to stay on the platform for as long as possible.
Exactly. So I think people get into echo chambers, like everybody likes to call it, and they're constantly being fed. Same thing here. I don't see anything pro Joe Biden on anything I'm on.
Of course not.
YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, even email blasts. I don't get anything like that.
Yeah.
I'm sure somebody that is with that kind of community, that's all they get. And they don't get anything pro-Republican, Trump, DeSantis, whatever, right?
Yeah.
So I think the issue is we're being played, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty obvious. If you're paying attention, they're playing both sides.
Exactly. Yeah. That's what I feel. I was trying to see if you saw it the same way. It's like, it seems like a distraction to turn us against each other and try to miss out on what the actual problems are, which is the corruption and people in the higher ups kind of trying to keep us fighting with each other so we don't actually see what the real problem is.
Exactly. But there's even that, it's not stigma. There's that situation with the 2A community too, right? You got the guys that, you got the vets that talk shit on civilians, and Lucas from T-Rex Arms. Then you got the civilians that talk shit on vets.
Yep.
And then you got You got
people who talk shit on anybody who has guns.
Right? So we're not doing ourselves any favors by attacking our own either.
Yeah, because they don't see that they think there's no common ground between anybody. There's no thing that we can band behind. We can't even agree that, hey, people dying in schools is a bad thing. It's hard because
I think we could agree on that.
It's hard because they honestly think gun people don't care about anything.
Oh, you're saying, okay, left and right.
Yeah.
I thought you were saying
just anybody who disagrees with you, they just demonize the other side to the point where it's like an unrecognizable version of a person's opinion. And that's what they think the other side is. When they can just take a second to try to understand what they're trying to say, I think we come together on some of these subjects.
Even the law enforcement and civilians criticizing law enforcement for some of those things, like the Uvalde shooting.
Yeah.
The criticisms. Then now I feel like, maybe LA guys don't want to train with civilians because there's this thing that the civilians, they think, oh, well, they're mostly not all squared away, which there could be some truth to that, where a lot of them might need to hold themselves to a higher standard.
Yeah.
But either way, now it's even like a thing where people on the, I don't want to say left or right, but whatever. I guess I will. People on the right are obviously all pro-police and biggest support in law enforcement. But then you have some, rightfully so, that say, well, they need to be held to a higher standard.
Right.
And then they the LE guys take offense to it. And then there's I think there is a divide there too.
There is.
Even on the conservative side of the house, where some people want to criticize, and then the LE guys take that criticism personally.
Yeah.
And then now they're like, fuck that. I don't want to go train with civilians, because if they do better than me, they're going to whatever. It's going to look bad on all the LE guys.
Absolutely.
I think it's the opposite. I think if they show up, I think they're more squared away.
Exactly, because they're about it. They don't care. I'm here to put in some work. Who cares what happens? We're all going to get better in the end of the day.
You said you noticed that during matches, right?
Yeah, I did. In shooting matches, like when cops show up to matches, that kind of thing, those guys who show up to matches are about it. That's completely different than your average kind of police or law enforcement officer. Those guys took the time out of their weekend to go and train and compete in a match when they've worked a long week with tons of late night shifts or whatever it is. That's how I know that they're actually about it.
That's badass.
Yeah.
Just like Josh, he's obviously about it. And his instructors, I guess you could say, that led him through his recent shooting events, they saw that immediately. And I think it was probably pretty refreshing to them.
Yeah. I think we need to build more people like him, man. I've shot with some awesome cops, but they're a different breed that's what they do if they're not working,
Yeah. Well, it's the same thing from the civilian standpoint. Everybody's a Second Amendment advocate, but who's really out there holding themselves to higher standards to portray themselves that way? I think not a lot of people are.
Yeah.
So it's not just LE guys. We're not picking on them. I think it's military dudes, LE guys, civilians, everybody. Fitness, firearms, all these different kind of things, that it's pretty rare to find people trying to push.
Yeah, it's a level of personal responsibility, no matter who you are.
Yeah, I think you said the other day, you nailed it, when the key is the department, this going back to law enforcement, the key, I think, is the department has that community or whatever
culture.
You said, the culture, yeah. So they have a culture of higher standards.
Yeah.
I obviously I'm not in one, but I believe Utah County Sheriff's Department is pretty damn squared away in that way.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say who, but I have seen some other on the flip sides when I've been working at places and helping out, and guys show up to do their qualification for their rifle. Their rifle's pretty important in the Uvalde shooting. I believe, the guy had some sort of advantage where he could have done something about it, but he didn't take the shot. We talked about this weekend because he wasn't confident he can make that 100 to 150 yard shot with a rifle with a red dot. That should be a given as a professional. You should be able to make that.
Yeah.
But he didn't feel confident he could make it. And I saw these guys showing up to do their qualification, and they needed a sling on their gun. First off, for the qual, I think it was they needed a sling on their gun. They showed up without a sling, expecting to buy one at that location, which is fine, but then they had no idea how to set it up. They had no idea what would be a good sling, how to do this, how to do that. And I think that comes down to their trainers and the culture at their group, right? Because whoever your guys leading the way are, at every department, they've got their instructors. Their information's endless. You have the internet, right?
Yeah.
There's nothing stopping you from, okay, maybe your department can't afford to give everybody a sling, everybody a red dot, and the guys need to create their own setup, which is totally fine, but they could give guidance. Hey, here's for our application, here's the best way to set up a sling because of these reasons, or here's 2 or 3 ways.
Yeah.
But guys showing up, not even having one idea how to fucking set up their sling is ridiculous. A sling on a rifle it's necessary. Yeah. Especially for them. They use it not only to go hands-on, what are you going to do, put the gun on the ground? You look ridiculous. Yeah. And that's not a professional with firearms, for sure.
Yeah, I think the problem is there's no standardization when it comes to those basic things. Because, of course, any department or even the military, they like to standardize everything. So the equipment's exactly the same, the maintenance is the same, and training how to use that is all the same. But it's unfortunate that a lot of these departments don't have enough funding or people dedicated to these certain things.
Yeah, I think it's the dedication of the people because, they get... I think it's a lot of the cases around here. We live in a pretty rural area, and they have enough money to give everybody a rifle, but not all the sexy stuff on it, which is totally fine. A rifle's better than not a rifle.
Yeah.
And they say you guys can outfit it how you want. And that's great, but you need to also educate them on what would be ideal. And there's gotta be somebody on the group or the department that knows, okay, if I set up my sling at the 2 endpoints, this is gonna be great for this, but not as good for this. And if I set it on a 1-point sling, it's great for this, but not for this. Like as a professional law enforcement officer, maybe, of course you wouldn't know it going into it, but it's somebody's responsibility at the academy or at your end state at the agency to educate you on that. It should never be expected that you need to, like, why would it be expected that you need to learn all this stuff on your own?
Yeah.
You're a police officer. You go through all this training. You got all these whatever instructors at your department. Why wouldn't they give you this information or seek it out themselves?
Right. Interesting question. I think every department's different. Every group of people is different. Yeah, I shot with some really good cops at Sandy PD. Jeremy took me to one of their ranges at the community college. And I showed up, I was like, oh, shooting with cops, let's see how good they are. And they were freaking good. Nice. They train they have free ammo. They have pallets and pallets of ammo. They're in there every single day trying to get better. And that's a rare breed. And they smoked me on every single kind of thing. I learned so much from them. There are those people who are there. So how can you bottle that and get it to the rest of the department so they're all kind of the same that way?
Well, all it takes is one guy that's squared away and has it could literally be a newsletter.
Yeah.
Or however they put out information, whoever's the firearms guy, and if you're the firearms guy for your department, take this idea and run with it. Every week, you could create a YouTube video, or you don't have to put it on YouTube. Maybe you don't want to because certain SOPs you don't want out there. But you could easily find a YouTube video that's correct or mostly correct, right?
Yeah.
You could find something that's squared away to put out to your guys every week on a sling setup, on grip with shooting, on some sort of tactics with risk mitigation, CQB, whatever. Or you can make it, and it could be just like we do our Monday Minutes. Because we don't want to be, bitching about this and not give any kind of answer to how to fix it, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, you could easily be the guy. Every week you got Monday Minute for whatever. We'll say Utah County because that's on my mind. Utah County Sheriff's Department, Monday Minute, and here's Officer so-and-so. And he's, hey guys, this week it's rifle month, so we're going to give you more information on how to shoot a rifle. Whatever. We want to zero ours. We want to standardize it at 100 yards. Because inside of 100 yards, I'm probably using my pistol. If I have to go to my rifle, It's probably going to be at a certain distance. Who knows? I could be wrong. I'm just making shit up right now. But you could have all these different things. And hey, our rifles are FN blah, blah, blah. And here I am at the range with R0. Here's all of our holds. Now, we always say you got to know the holds for your own gun. But if it's the same gun, and it could be different red dots, but if the red dots are the same height and the same position on the gun.
Same ammo.
It's the same ammo. It pretty much should be squared away the same.
Right.
So then you could be like, hey guys, at 300 meters, we have to hold here. At 500, we have to hold here. That's crucial information that I get it. You're working nonstop and working your ass off because you're an undermanned department. Nobody wants to be a cop these days, which sucks.
Understand.
But it'd be so easy. Or you could just go on the internet. Yep, this adds up to our SOPs and what we think. Hey, here is Tactical Cowboy's YouTube video or Fieldcraft Survival.
Yeah, that's how I learned, honestly. Before I started training with you, you saw me. I was just like shooting competitions, hitting the range sometimes, building out guns, coming back and testing it again, trying to learn on my own as much as possible. Mm-hmm. What did you think of me when I first took one of your first classes?
What was the first class?
It was like rifle and medical, I think.
Oh yeah, up there in West Mountain.
Yeah.
Man, how glad am I that we have our own range.
Yeah, right.
When we went there the other day for that private session, and I'm sure many people have seen the video about the trash out there.
Yeah, it's getting bad out there.
Don't leave your trash out on the range. Anyways, I thought you were super squared away. I remember I think it's from your fighting background, like you said, you were cool and calm under pressure because we did rifle stuff. Then we added in a little bit of marching medical. I had you guys do some scenarios where you had to react to contact, shooting, then take care of the tactical situation before the medical situation. Then the tactical situation is done. Then you address the medical while still holding security.
Yeah.
And you did a really good job.
Thanks, man. I was worried about it because I was like, I don't know what kind of training we're gonna do.
How did you find out about us?
You. Like, I kept going to the store.
Oh, yeah. Discount Guns and Ammo.
It was during the pandemic where I was just buying a ton of lowers and building guns for my family.
Oh, yeah. I kept being like this fucking Asian guy.
Yeah.
Just nonstop Aero Precision lowers.
Yeah, just a bunch of gun lowers building. Because everybody was asking me about guns and they knew I liked shooting. I was like, I hope you build one. So I got lowers, I got them parts, did some basic training with them, and got lowers for my wife's family and just started building rifles for them. And you kept asking me, and you were just like, you should come train with us someday. And I was just apprehensive because of my poor experience with other trainers in the past. Not enough repetitions. I need to send more rounds. I need to see my mistakes and adjust them, that kind of thing. I was like, how about it is this guy? You know? So one day I was just like, let's do it. I'm not shooting a match this weekend. Let's just go and see what it's about.
Yeah.
And I'm glad I did. It was completely different than what I thought it was.
Super cool.
Yeah.
So I'm not exactly sure how long this has been, but it's been quite some time.
Yeah.
So do you have anything else like you want to ask or hit on before we close this out?
I wonder. Yeah. No, I think I'm good. Yeah.
That was a pretty fun conversation. Good for the first Tactical Cowboy podcast.
For sure, man.
So what we're going to do with this Tactical Cowboy podcast thing, we're going to have local people that are flying in. I'm about to have a bunch of guests from Colorado and North Carolina here pretty soon. We're just going to meet cool people, have it be super chill and candid. As you can see, there's no lists or anything that like stuff we're going to talk about. We're just going to have a good time meeting people and get some cool information and content out there. So
yeah, I love this format, man.
Thanks for coming and being episode number 1.
For sure. It's been an honor. Thanks, man.
All right, that's it. Have a good one. Boom.